Hey folks, thanks so much for being here. Just wanted to give you a quick heads up. What you're listening to is an episode from VJ Talks, my podcast. And this is a re-upload, so if you hear anything about, hey, go check out this link, go check out this forum, etc., it's more than likely not there anymore. So just wanted to give you that heads up before you went looking for something that wasn't there. Either way, thank you so much for watching. Please enjoy, and let me know what you think in the comments. Catch you later. Hello, everybody. Welcome back, VJ Talks. Happy for everybody listening. Happy to be here. So I am here with the amazing Dael Kingsmill, and we are talking about two things today. One topic, class and subclass design, but two different products, right? So the first, we're going to be talking about what I think was your first Dmsguild product, Heroes and Villains of Theros, a massive expansion for the Theros D&D setting that presents a ton of new content to make your game mythic, and the Kingsmill patch, where you reworked the 5e classes and some subclasses with your Dael brand of tweaks. But
that's a good way of putting it.
Dael, please introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, I'm Dael Kingsmill. I am probably best known for making D&D videos on youtube.com/Monarchs Factory. I was gonna stop at YouTube and then it just kept going. It turned into a whole URL. I talk about D&D amongst other nerdy things, and you know, I pop up all over the place. I'm on Twitter, at least for the time being, while that website still exists, and I'm also on Twitch, and you can find me anywhere. Just you know, Google Dael Kingsmill, I'll show up.
And specifically to mention, you are frequently on Ghostfire Gaming's Eldritch Lorecast, correct?
That is true. That is a true statement. I'm glad you remembered, because I was going to not, and that's bad of me.
That's what I'm here for. But okay. First question. Why subclasses for your first product on the Dmsguild?
Look, I just really like them. So this was actually, the project was pitched to me by Jeremy Malul, who I, had met a couple times. I'd been lucky enough to run into him at events in the States while I was over there. And as they announced Theros was going to be coming out, he sort of said, I'm planning on releasing a sort of book of subclasses for the Theros setting, and since you like D&D design and you quite notably had a Greek mythology vlog on Geek and Sundry, I wondered whether you'd be interested in joining me. And so we split up the classes between us and had at it, and it was so much fun. I really enjoyed doing it. So I ended up doing the Bard, the Cleric, the Monk, Paladin, Rogue, and Warlock subclasses. And then I did a terrible thing. I kept making the project bigger and bigger as we were working on it. I was like, what if we did, like a cool background for the Return? Because I was a big fan of the Theros set in Magic the Gathering, and I loved the Return. So I was like, they should be present, and I'm not sure they're going to put them in the actual setting book. So we should do it. So we did that, and then he added a background as well. And then I was like, also, what about this? And it spiraled out of control. But it's a huge book, but it was really fun to make.
Absolutely hilarious. I remember when it came out, we were fighting like neck and neck for who was number one for a little bit.
It was so exciting. That was when you and I ended up following each other for the first time, because we were just watching it go back and forth.
For anybody that's listening for the first time, I'm one of the authors for An Elf and Orc Had a Little Baby, volumes 1 through 3, which changes race in D&D, breaks it up into parentage and upbringings. And I think we had put out volume 2 at that point when we were going back and forth. It might have been 1. Who knows? Time is fake.
Time is fake. If we've learned anything, it's that time is fake. And it's also a weird soup.
Weird soup, exactly. It was one of those, but it was so funny, like constantly going back and be like, get back up there, stop buying, but not really, of course. Like, we all want each other to succeed, but it was pretty funny.
It was buy mine more.
Exactly, and then we both got knocked out of first place by exploring Eberron. Like,
It released within it. That's interesting that you bring that up, because I just caused trouble for Jeremy the whole time, basically, because that was another thing where I jumped in and I was like, I've just found out that they're releasing Eberron like the day before we planned to release Heroes and Villains of Theros, and I was like, we have got to get it up before that comes out, because otherwise we're just gonna disappear. And so I forced us to release it like 4 days early or something. I mean, it was done, it was edited, it was ready.
Exactly. Listen, that is that is so, like, my co-author Adam was handling a lot of, like, I at that point I was just like, you know what, I'm just here to do the writing and help you get your stuff together and me get my mechanics together, and I wasn't as, like, focused on, like, oh, when release dates come out, so I didn't even know that was coming out. And then I was like, holy fuck, Adam, you were on it. You were on it, because we would have been fucked if we sent this in later. Oh my. Oh man.
It was good. What an exciting time. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was such a fun time. We should try and do that again. I mean, I don't know if you're ever going to make anything so amazing that it tops us again, but you know.
Wow.
Whatever.
Big talk.
It's a fact. Sorry. Although I can't remember who was on top between the two of us after that, with Eberron, like who was 1 and who was 2 and 3.
I think we won the short term, and then like a week later you were back on top. Like there's such longevity for Elfin and Orc, whereas Theros, I think, was a really big spike, and it's still trucking along doing well, making it sound like, oh, there was a spike and then no one buys it anymore.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, everyone has forgotten about it. No, it's still doing fine, but I feel like there's just so much. Elfin and Orc is so applicable to every campaign. It's so good.
Truly. So what I'm hearing, before we get back on topic, I need to make something that's very niche, and you need to make something that's applicable across the place, and then see what happens.
Yeah, perfect. That's what, and then we can prove once and for all.
But okay. So, my next question, my next section for this. Why is there no artificer? It is on we are on the Dmsguild, which means we can use it, and I'm curious.
I think for me, it just came down to wanting an even split, because there were 12 classes and we wanted to do 6 subclasses each. And I don't know whether Jeremy wanted to do an artificer, but I just literally never brought it up, because I was like, look, if we do it this way, it's an exactly even split. And that'll be good. But you're right that there was a lot of room for one, because, if you go Hephaestian, so much potential there. Maybe one day I'll do one. Maybe I should just write one. Stick it up there.
Really, you should. And like, at first I was thinking, I was like, do they just feel like it doesn't make, like, thematic sense in the setting? Because, like, I can understand that maybe the artificer doesn't like really fit everywhere. Like, it fits great in Eberron, right? It can fit great in, I don't know, Ravnica, Exandria, which is, not open to the Dmsguild, but like, it can fit great in a lot of places. But and I'm not like the world-renowned expert on Theros. I like the setting. I read the books. I stole the monsters, but not a magic person, so not as knowledgeable on it. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't fit there correctly. Who knows?
It definitely... The weird thing is that I think it's a great fit in some ways for Greek mythology, but maybe weirdly a less good fit for Theros. The way that Theros as a setting got translated to D&D, I think it fits. But the original sort of MTG stuff didn't have as many automatons as I think they should have had. Should have had plenty of automatons. Give them to me. You got them in the D&D book though.
Yeah. Okay, Dael, I'm gonna put you on the spot right now. Feel free to say no. Tell me thematically. Give me like one mechanical thing that you might have done if you'd done an artificer for Theros. You have 5 seconds.
God, oh no. I don't know what I would have done. This is so
That's
stressful.
Fair. That is super fair. You know what? I've been wanting to stress out the people that I bring on here, besides like putting them in death defying. Yeah. Exactly. Besides like, actually running campaign, like a short one shot for them where I like put them in death defying odds. But like, thank you for participating in that.
Yeah, that was scary. I'm sure the artificer will come back around once we hit the Kingsmill patch as well. I feel the interrogation is going to loop back around.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm gonna have to ask about it because again, it's not there. But okay.
I've never run for an artificer. I just don't know enough about them.
Excuses. You know what? We'll get back to that. Okay, so I read the entire Heroes and Villains, right? Not just your stuff as well. Didn't leave any questions in here for you that weren't yours, because I was like, you know what? That might not be fair.
That'd be great. Just have me speak on Jeremy's behalf.
Yeah, actually, can you speak on Jeremy's behalf about that Ranger one? Like, was there inspiration from the Eladrin, or anyway?
No idea.
Okay, all right, okay, cool.
I probably still have access to some of his design notes, so maybe I should go digging, but...
Listen, if you find them and you have them, you can just, make sure he's okay with it, and I can add it to the show notes. Be like, hey, this was also cool. Like, but okay, all of the things that I read that were yours were, one, amazing, and two, I want you to, talk about your favorite ones to make out of that, kind of what your process was for it, and then there's one particular part of it, there's a specific question I have about the Cleric Journey domain and the 8th level ability, but we will save that for, the end, because that'll be, specific question, and then we'll break and go to the Kingsmill patch. So please.
Okay.
Tell me about all of this.
So for starters, tell me if this is incorrect, but the impression I get is that you and I have a similar approach to design in terms of, yes, there's the sort of narrative, conceptual inspiration element, but also I think seemingly you and I both then go and look at the existing material, break it down into its component parts, see how kind of the maths of the game works, not even just in terms of number bonuses. I know that there is literally maths in the game, but I just also mean the crunch of what different abilities are worth. And we break it down, and then we rebuild something that fits a similar shape. And that can be super hard as well, right? Designing for the Paladin in Theros was an interesting difference, because the Paladin is one of the only classes where the subclass gets a really cool 20th level ability, right? That capstone ability that's this huge cool thing. And so then designing all these other subclasses and hitting that challenge of how do you make sure that their capstone ability is cool, sounds cool, feels cool, but they somehow have a less powerful capstone ability than their second last thing. Whatever their penultimate ability is usually a bit better. Just because that's how it was designed, or something like the cleric, right? There is a very specific pattern. Every cleric's 8th level ability is either going to be potent spellcasting or whatever the one is where you
Divine
hit things
Strike.
harder. Thank you so much. Or Divine Strike, which we will talk about that in a minute because it is a thing.
That was my question. That's what I had a question about. So we will talk about that.
We will talk about that. It will be talked about. In terms of favorites, the Rogue was definitely sort of a dark horse for me. I thought that it was just going to be kind of a throwaway. The ones I was most excited for, we'd kind of heard ahead of time what the subclass concepts in the setting book were going to be, and the Bard was College of Eloquence? Is that the one that came out with Theros? Yeah, and whatever it was, I was shocked and horrified that it was not based on Orpheus, so there was something like that I was really excited for. I was like, there's a really easy, obvious idea here that is so thematic that I think we can make really cool, and I bullied Jeremy into letting me do those ones that I was excited about. It worked out fine, because he was, excited about the fighter subclass, and it kind of, shook out pretty evenly in terms of that stuff. But no, the rogue tactician, I just kind of did a throwaway thing of who's kind of roguish, probably Odysseus, and then I ended up creating this rogue where the whole point of them is that they're intelligence forward more than they are dex forward, and so it's all about kind of analyzing your enemies or helping your allies, get good, giving them the benefit of sneak attack, seeing the openings that you ordinarily would see as a rogue. And that just, I don't know, the way it came out, I just really liked the finished product. It felt a lot simpler than I think a lot of the other things, which is nice.
Yeah, and to pause and talk about two things. One, I can totally see you being a bully. Dael and I made something together, another thing in Beings from Beyond the Horizon, and Dael was a bully to me as well.
I absolutely bullied Vic. I will tell you right now, I have bullied Vic, and I would do it again.
I'm gonna resist the urge to make a race joke here. But those listening know that it's in my head. But okay.
The power you wield as host of this. Truly. This is dangerous.
Listen, just say the one wrong thing. I will clip this and it will be, and listen.
It's coming.
It's coming. I will dethrone you and take all of your opportunities. I'm sure they could use like a very amazing, black writer on the Eldritch Lore. Anyway,
You've just got, look, here's Dael admitting she's a bully right here.
To a black person, like you see what's happening here. But to touch back more on what you said, is that, like you said, you were thinking, so you were trying to figure out who like is kind of the tactician's inspiration, and it was Odysseus. Did you do that for every single one of them? And you mentioned like you weren't happy that the Bard College wasn't Orpheus. Is that, you said that right? Yes.
That is, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So.
I definitely did a bit of that. I didn't have kind of a one-to-one character for all of them, but there were definite inspirations because I'm such a Greek myth nerd. So Odysseus for the rogue, Orpheus for the bard, sort of Circe and Callisto and Medea were big inspirations for the warlock. And then the other ones, I don't think there was a specific inspiration for the cleric. And the monk and paladin both had elements of Heracles inspiring them, like this idea of, when Heracles was driven to madness by Hecate and murdered his entire family, and it wasn't a great time. I thought, hey, what if that was a monk? I don't know why I thought that. Monks, peaceful, in touch with themselves. And I was like, yeah, what if it was a murderous rage instead? I don't know, I kind of thought unarmed Greek fighting, wrestling, and then it kind of turned into pankration, which is a really violent form of traditional Greek wrestling, which involves a lot of, ripping off testicles and gouging out eyes. It's kind of a no-holds-barred, very literally no holds barred situation, and I thought that seems angry, let's make it this. So that was kind of the situation there. And then the paladin was thinking about how then Heracles went on to redeem himself. But in Greek myth, I don't think there's anything really like a paladin, because paladins have this kind of this dedication that I think Greek heroes tend to be lacking. So I was like, let's imagine if Greek heroes like Heracles actually had had redeemable qualities and a sense of like regret. What would that look like? So I made something up from there. But yeah, it was kind of, there were definitely strong inspirations that often came from specific characters that I applied to the subclasses, yeah.
Of course. And I'm very vocal about this on Twitter and TikTok, but I don't know if you come across this, but for anybody listening, it's probably no surprise that my favorite subclass that you make is the Warlock, the Forgotten God, because I am first and foremost a Warlock main, even though I'm branching out and trying new things, unfortunately.
I love using the term main when it comes to D&D, because it makes me feel better about always playing a rogue.
Listen, rogues are tasty. I play one on Saturdays when we're not on a break, and I'm just like somebody suggested, multi-class, and I was like, how about no? Like, I had the option to multi-class into a Fey Warlock, and I was like,
tempting,
but no.
However,
horny, sad rogue. Like, what else are you supposed to be in that situation? But
you need an edgelord.
There are two of us in the party that are edgelords, and one of us is a paladin. So it's a trip. But on the note of the Forgotten God, right? So like, I was reading this, and while I was reading this, I was like, let me go look at the Celestial Warlock, because like both of them, like even though the Forgotten God is forgotten, still like you would like, I would still consider like a celestial being, like, and so does like most of D&D, like when they talk about the astral sea, like, oh, the floating corpses of dead gods, like, okay, it's dead and you're still calling it a god, so it's still obviously some type of divine creature. And I guess I'm kind of curious, like, for anybody that like sees this, gets it, you should definitely go get it. You can check the show notes for where to get it. This is like so far from the celestial warlock while still being in the realm of like, oh, they're siblings, they're cousins, they're like, you know, related to each other in some way. And I guess my question is, when you were making this, I'm assuming there was some reference to the various warlocks and like at least checking them out, because I'm not really seeing a lot of like I'm not seeing a lot of influence from the celestial warlock, and I could just be missing something. So I'm guessing, like, why go the way you went and not like just, you know, like tweak it a little bit, like more from the celestial, but still turn it into something different. But like, this is like I guess I would
reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, this is reinventing the wheel. Whereas I was thinking, like, why not, like, if the celestial warlock is the number 1, why not just go to the number 3 or 4 versus, oh, you went to 10, you went to maybe 15, which, you know, love it.
Yeah, so that I think I picked up a bad habit. So I you know, went to a performing arts high school and I studied theater at university, and I think at some point I just picked up a bad habit of not so much ignore. I think in early days it was like, oh, I'm playing this role, I don't want to watch the, you know, the quintessential version of this, I don't know, Hamlet or whatever. I never played Hamlet, I don't know why I picked Hamlet, but anyway, you know, that idea of, you know, so and so was the best ever Hamlet, so don't want to watch that because I'll end up just doing what they did. I've never been so worried about that, but I have always had in the back of my head, I want it to be my take on it. I don't want to base any of this on the other person's thing, right? I want to start from ground zero and build up. And I think that habit, which I'm not sure that it's an admirable quality. It's just something that I happen to do. I think that you can save yourself a lot of time and get something just as good. But I certainly have carried that over into design work and really just, and I think that'll come up in the Kingsmill patch as well. But you know, I have this kind of need to start from ground zero and just fill in the lines that are required of me. But apart from that, you know, make my own thing. And I also just, with the Forgotten God, I was being so pedantic. I really wanted it to feel a really specific way. I wanted to have the blood tithe because I wanted it to feel a little bit occult, you know. I wanted it to, that sort of.
I got culty vibes from this. I was like, this is a cult.
Yeah, 100% it is, because there's these, you know, you have these mysteries throughout mythology, Greek mythology, and by that I mean literal mysteries. So the word mysteries we get from the secrets of the Greek mysteries, but they would be, you know, the Dionysian mysteries or the mysteries of Hecate, right? That you have a god that you worship, but it's like a secret sect that have their own specific traditions that play out, and you know, rituals and events and whatever that play out around those. And there's this bizarre cult quality to that, and I wanted to carry that through, and I wanted to carry through the idea of the different layers of gods. I think it's so fascinating that Greek mythology very openly is like, yeah, these are the Olympian gods, and before them there were the Titan gods, and before them there were the primordial Titans, and before them you even have, you know, and it just goes back and back and back, and the further back you go, the broader the concepts get, and the less based in civilization they get, right? So like Zeus, king of the gods, god of justice, remarkably somehow the god of justice. Yep. And then, you know, you go back a layer and you get the Titan gods, and they're a little bit less based on sort of social concepts. And then you go back a layer further and it's like the sky, time, you know, and you just get this bizarre journey into kind of prehistory. And there's always been this weird difference. Like, you'll notice that the people I listed, I didn't list the wizard or the sorcerer as subclasses I wrote because I didn't know how to approach them. Because from my perspective, magic in Greek mythology is it's so unusual. It's so different from fantasy because it's so grounded in just like stuff that happens all the time. Like the gods are over there. This is just a thing that guy can do. Yes, he can change the appearance of cows. That's just a skill he has. But when you get to the sorceresses in particular, in Circe, in Medea, there's this bizarre treatment of them that is everyone's scared of them. Despite the fact that all these people have access to things that we would view as magical, the sorceresses, who overwhelmingly are like the daughter or granddaughter of a primordial titan or a titan god, so they're connected not with the current deities but with a layer or two back. The daughter of Helios, right? They're afraid of them, and they're scary because they can just kind of do all sorts of different things. They make potions, they make balms, they enchant people, and it's a different sort of approach to what magic looks like in Greek mythology. So I just really wanted the Forgotten God to feel like it was walking that line of, there's something about this that is cultish and scary.
Yeah, definitely. Succumb to nature. Let me just read this like a little spot to y'all real quick. Starting at 14th level, you can twist intelligent beings into a more bestial state. As an action, you can target a number of humanoid creatures up to your charisma modifier that you can see within 30 feet of you. Each target must make an intelligence saving throw against your warlock spell DC, taking 3d10 psychic damage on a fail save or half as much on a successful one. In addition, creatures who fail their saves are cursed. Cursed creatures fall prone and cannot stand up. A cursed creature a cursed creature may make another intelligence saving throw at the end of each of its turn. On a successful save, the curse and all of its effects are ended. Targets cursed by this feature begin to slowly transform into a wild animal, succumbing to their base instincts. Choose a beast of CR 1/2 or 1/4 that has a walking speed. This beast cannot be a swarm or contain the giant keyword. After 3 rounds, the creature becomes the selected beast at the beginning of its turn. When a creature cursed by this feature becomes a beast, it regains the ability to stand from prone. While the creature is a beast, its game statistics, including mental ability scores, are replaced by the statistics of the chosen beast. And the curse of this effect only lasts for up to a minute, and you must maintain concentration. And there are a couple of things that can, remove it: greater restoration, remove curse, or wish. But that is like, that is horrific, but also reminds me of like, I know, Circe, who would turn people into wild animals and whatnot. I don't know if there was anybody else that did that. And the only reason I remember that is 1, Percy Jackson, 2, Justice League with Batman and Diana from that one episode when she got turned into a pig. But this is really terrifying. And when I was reading it, it was like, I was imagining it the way that I like, when my players aren't like, hey, no like really gruesome descriptions of stuff. If nobody tells me that, the way I will describe like people like wild shaping maybe the first time, or if they're okay with me describing it like this every time, or where creatures is like your bones break, your body shift, you're groaning and crying in pain kind of thing. And that was literally what I was like, if I had a player who was using this, or if I had a BBG or something that did this to the players or something, that's how I would describe it if they were okay with that level of description, obviously.
Yeah. That's exactly the kind of thing, because I had in my head, so it started with Circe turning Odysseus's men into pigs for sure, but then I also had in the back of my head, if you've ever seen Willow, when Bavmorda comes out to view the army and she just says, "This is no army, you're all pigs," and they all just start turning into pigs, and it's like the most horrific thing in the world, and all their faces are stretching and their hands are disappearing and everyone's screaming and writhing in pain, and it's nightmarish, but it's also incredible. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. How about I do that to people?
I'm definitely gonna have to go back and watch that. I'm watching the new series. I've never seen like the first, but like it literally got referenced recently. Like, oh yeah, turned everybody into pigs. I'm like, what the fuck? The whole army?
Messed up. It was great.
Oh my god, yeah,
great.
No, this, but yeah, and you actually already touched on what I like. Part of what I was going to ask is like, so you got inspiration from Circe and you got inspiration from Willow, like the previous one, not the new series. I guess when you were doing this, did you at any point feel like, because like, I think Circe is like, for anybody, like maybe not everybody's going to recognize that as Cersei for those that are going to recognize it, did you think for any of them it would be like, oh, so this forgotten god is supposed to be an analog for Cersei in particular, and not necessarily any forgotten god that I'm deciding to put in my thing? Like,
I hope not. you might be 100% right. Yeah, it was so hard to capture in that opening description for the Forgotten God that I'm trying to get across that it's genuinely like a presence that has been deliberately. So there's also there's a MTG Theros thing, right? There's a god called Krufix who is the god of horizons and knowledge and all sorts of things. But there's a short story that was published where one of his sort of acolytes is talking to him, and he makes this sort of passing reference to previous gods of Theros who have been killed and deliberately sort of removed from the memory of the world. And so trying to capture that idea of this was a god, they were defeated and they've been deliberately kind of stripped from the records, but they're still there and they're still powerful enough to supply this warlock with something. And I mean, not all of them, I left room for it to not be everyone, but the thing that stuck in my head was this idea of them trying to gain power back through warlocks, because this thing of belief and Dionysus is a great example from Greek mythology, who divine birth, sure, son of Zeus, whatever, but he was half mortal, and he had to basically travel around the world making people believe in his divinity before he could ascend to godhood. And it's this bizarre thing where you can see the connections with Judeo-Christian mythology as it applies to Jesus and various other characters from other mythologies. But the story of Dionysus, travels into the East and then back with wine, right? So the invention of wine started in the East and then moved west across, from Asia into Eastern Europe, into Western Europe, and into the Mediterranean. And so this story kind of mirrors that thing of, oh yeah, he went into the East as a mortal, but he came back the god of wine, and he brought with him wine, and then at the end of that story he gets to actually become a god. But it's all so complicated. But on top of that, MTG's Theros, the first set from that, the first block from that set, the first set from that block, I don't remember the terminology, but the bad guy from that set was basically an analog for Dionysus if he was evil. This guy going around getting revelers to follow him and believe in him so that he can become a god. And it was kind of this story about trying to defeat him. I think he did become a god and then had to be killed in Nyx. It was a whole complicated mess, but just because Theros in Magic the Gathering had sort of trod those lines, I thought it would be interesting to dip into them again with the idea of, gods can rise and fall, and they can be replaced, and they can be forgotten, and they can be remembered, and they can, and I thought the Warlock was just so primed for that.
No, yeah, exactly. Definitely, given the general class is like, hey, these aren't gods, or they're not like current gods that you're actually following. They're, celestials, divine beings, quasi deities and whatnot. I really gotta say, I love, of course, every subclass has the little blurb in it, right? But not every subclass has enough of a blurb to give you really good storytelling. When just to touch on the Kingsmill patch for just a second, I went through and compared every single major thing, because I was like, okay, what are the changes here? What are the things I gotta ask questions about? Oh, what does this say to tell me why you made this mechanical and narrative design choice? And I was looking at the Watcher, which is now Vigilance, we'll get to in that, and I was the little blurb for that was this is very small and doesn't give me sure, I could sit here and be okay, what, it gives me generic oh, the BBG is an extraplanar being, but give me more, versus all of the ones at the very least that you've written. It's oh yeah, cool, I could totally do that. The driven to reclaim their lost authority by cultivating a resurgence in their cult followers. I could literally have a whole story of oh, hey, this whole town fell underneath this cult, this cult. They promised their kids souls to this forgotten god, and now we have a bunch of the forgotten god warlocks who have been indoctrinated into this, running around and indoctrinating other people at various parts of the world and just bringing this god god back to life or whatever, and maybe the players are trying to stop that, or they like realize, oh, the god's not necessarily bad, they just don't like being dead anymore, you know? Like it gives like there's so much like story potential in all of the little blurbs.
Thank you. That makes me feel really good. It makes me feel like I didn't waste my time.
Excellent. A plus job. Okay. Is there any other subclass you want to touch on before we talk about the cleric?
I think we got to talk about the cleric.
Okay. First, before we dive into my, not problem with you, but just, it's not
I know
you.
the truth. I know the truth. Now I am the one being bullied.
You know, anybody who's listening to this will know that's not true. I've literally just said it's not you. It's not you, and it's not me. It's Wizards of the Coast. It's Wizards of the Coast. Okay. All right. Journey domain. Tell me about your process. Tell me about making it, and then let's get to the good stuff.
Okay, so let me see if I remember all the details of my long ago journey. I started from a place of thinking, who would be an interesting god to have a domain for in Greek myth, because, you know, a lot of them have been covered because a lot of cleric stuff has folded out from the Greek pantheon just because it's one of the world religions that didn't get wiped out. And all the documents destroyed, and so we have a lot of information about the Greek and Roman pantheon. So a lot of fantasy stuff, or particularly D&D cleric stuff, has you know, made use of that. But as I was thinking that, I was thinking about the sort of grab bag gods, right? So the Olympians who were added later, like Apollo and Hermes, tend to have just a ton of things under their domain. And Hermes is best summed up as just the god of people who use roads. So yes, he is the messenger, but he's also, he's the god of thieves, because thieves use roads and they travel. He was the god of doctors for a time. There's a whole myth that explains how he and Apollo kind of traded places there, but you know, he was the god of doctors for a time because doctors would travel, and he, you know, all these different things just kind of ended up falling under the grab bag that Hermes got. And so that's how I ended up on the journeys path. And then I got stuck for ages because I was trying to think of cool things that I could do with journeys that weren't just, I didn't want it to be about going fast. I feel like that would have been a really easy trap to fall into, to just be like, oh, you've got a really fast walking speed. But I didn't want all my sort of domain spells to be about that or anything. And I weirdly ended up, I thought I could get away with it because the vibe was a little bit similar. A lot of the inspirations ended up actually being biblical concepts rather than Greek mythological concepts, which is why, you know, you've got this first level ability that is, you know, giving you a direction that you should go. There's a little reference in there to a shining star in the night sky. So it's like, yeah, sure. I've got some paintings of the Journey of the Magi that I can use. And then,
or the water walker, right?
Yeah, Blessed Crossing, exactly. The parting of the Red Sea. Because, and that one ended up great. I love that as a capstone ability for the Journey domain because, I don't know, the vibe felt right. This cool thing of just like, I don't know, man, have you ever played Banner Saga? That bit where you have to cross the chasm and you got the rocks? You can do that now. And I used that as a veil so that people wouldn't immediately go, oh, so you're Moses. But yes, you are Moses.
You know, I don't know if a lot of people are going to pick up on it, because I definitely didn't when I was reading it. That might just be me, though. I might just be outing myself here as a whole ass, you know, oblivious motherfucker. But, you know, I'm going to believe that most people are in this boat with me, and nobody tell me otherwise.
Good.
Now we got to do it, right?
We got to talk about it.
Okay, let me pull up this section of my notes. All right, so
Wizards of the Coast, we got to talk.
We really do. Okay, so for those of you, like we mentioned previously, but let me tell you what the 8th level ability is real quick, right? For this particular class, it's Divine Strike. And so at 8th level, you gain the ability to infuse your weapon strikes with divine energy. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can cause the attack to deal an extra 1d8 radiant damage to the target. When you reach 14th level, the extra damage increases to 2d8. So, I think we can both agree that thematically, this 8th level ability does not fit with the journey demands.
This is what I want to talk about, okay? Because it's actually gone through changes. I don't know which version I ended up landing on for the most recent version of the cleric, but it's gone between Divine Strike and Potent Spellcasting multiple times, because every time, no matter which one I use, someone who's giving valuable, detailed feedback has said, I don't understand why you would use this one. Because neither of them makes sense, but that's the only thing. That's your choice when you're doing a cleric subclass. You have your 8th level, either Divine Strike or Potent Spellcasting, and I wasn't, looking to shake the boat or rewrite the face of it. But I wish that I was able to do something different, because when it's potent, so originally I was going to do Divine Strike because if you don't have proficiency in simple weapons, you get them. So I was going to give proficiency in like a walking staff or a shepherd's staff, or like a walking stick. But then found out that I didn't need to do that. They already had proficiency. And so I was like, oh, so you get nothing. So I guess I'll just make you better at hitting things with your stick, but that doesn't translate across without saying, hey, the intention is that you have a stick and you can use it good. But then potent spellcasting is a total flavorless fit as well. Like it has been a real thorn in my side, this element of subclass design where it's like, I do genuinely want to stick as close to the shape of the official material when it comes to subclass design as possible. But this one really grinds my gears.
It also grinds mine. One of the reasons why I haven't really done anything with subclasses work-wise, it's always been other things, and I'm because there's if somebody asks me to make a cleric and they are not going to allow me, and it's not like I'm a co-writer where I'm the writer where I'm just I don't give a fuck, I'm doing what I want. I'm going to be so frustrated. I recently learned something about myself. I've been working with people that I pretty much get free reign on things. And they'll be oh, hey, I trust your judgment, or if you don't want this change, we're not going to change it. And then going back into working with people that are nah, you got to change this. I was just am I being unreasonable? Is this just a thing that I'm just going to have to work on for me? Because I was just why are you touching this? Why are you changing the name? Leave my stuff. It was stressing me out. But of course, I was getting paid. I did what needed to be done. It's not like I was gonna, talk shit or anything, or be not actually mad at them, but it was literally stressing me out about it.
Yeah.
So I can't ever touch the cleric. But here's the. Because if I did touch the cleric, you wouldn't get potent spellcasting or divine strike. But it's mostly Wizards of the Coast's fault, right? But you know what, Dael? I'm putting 10% of it on you as well, friend. and here's my thing, right? I don't know where I heard this. I could have heard it on TikTok. I could have read it on Twitter it was probably Twitter. I'm pretty sure I read it from some real designer. It's probably Twitter. That was just hey, all clerics get this or this. However, if you think you're going to do something different, sure, but you need to make sure it is on the same power level as the other thing. It can't be lacking, right? And I guess my question is to you, I know you said that you really like to stay on, on point as much as possible, but why in this case? Why not shake up the boat a little bit and see? Because at the end of the day, if I'm remembering correctly, was the cleric in the preview for the thing? Was the cleric?
I genuinely don't know.
You know what? I
can't answer that question.
Please,
I know nothing.
That's fine. I will go look, but you please, assuming that the cleric was not in the preview, nobody would know that you did that until they bought it. It's not you're lying to them. But please.
True. I think part of it was that it was Jeremy's project, and I didn't know how he would feel about it. I was being fairly coy with some of that stuff. I didn't want to pitch it and then have him not be happy about it. Not that he would be. Jeremy's lovely. He would have been fine with it. This was all in my head. But it was that thing of, I don't want to just do it without mentioning it. but I don't want to pitch it and have it shut down. So I guess I'll just do this other thing instead. And I suppose the other thing that was in my head, I mean, the progression of the cleric is so wonky anyway, right? Like, what is it? You get a minor first level thing, good first level thing, second level thing, 6th level small, 8th level tiny, and then nothing until 17th level. And that's, if I was going to change it at all, at that point I would be ditching the 6th and 8th level thing and making a much bigger, cooler, like, I don't know, 10th level thing, 11th level, because the structure of it is wild to me. And at that point, then you're messing around with how it applies to the class as it pre-exists, and then that's going to be a problem, and I would have to redesign the whole class. And I mean, eventually one day I would get sick and kind of do that for a lot of classes, but it was not this day. This day I just decided to take the loss and accept it, because I thought that the crossing of the Red Sea was cool enough to carry it.
Okay, that makes sense. I completely and yes, future Dael from that point was very sick. 112 pages worth of sickness. Also,
it was a lot.
Also, I was completely wrong. The cleric is in the preview, so somebody would know that you had actually done that before buying it. Yes, so
gotcha. That's the real reason I didn't do it, because of the preview.
Okay, Dael, any last words on this topic, or on heroes and villains of Theros? Any words you want to give to the listeners about making subclasses for the Dmsguild?
The thing that I'll say about that is that my final thoughts is that I think you get some of your best work out of thematic constraints, and I think working on heroes and villains of Theros is some of the most fun subclass design I've done, even though I was really mindful of trying to make sure that they wouldn't be so specific to the setting that you couldn't use them elsewhere. And I think that I achieved that. At the same time, having a theme to work from made it so much fun. Really meant that there was a lot of cool source material to go back to and kind of ponder over and see how you could mechanically apply it. And I think that all the time, forever and always, you get some of your best creative work out of having, just a couple limitations as a framework to build off.
I can definitely agree with that. Well, all right, folks, we're going to take a short break. Enjoy the little interlude in here, and then we will be back, and we will be talking about we will be talking about the Kingsmill patch. So see you in a couple minutes. Hello. Hello, everybody. We're back. We have survived the break. Dael did not go blind from whatever was in her eye.
Congratulations to me.
Yes, but we are back, and we are talking about the second project, the second subclass, well, class and subclass project. Dael, in your own words, what is the Kingsmill patch?
Okay, so the Kingsmill patch, I think that heavy homebrewers are probably all familiar with that voice in the back of your head that says, this is, you know what, I should just redesign the entire fighter class because it's not working. And it just, that little voice wants you to redesign the whole game to fit how you want to do it. And one day, I was sick. I was sick for like a week. And I guess the fever got to me because I sat down and I just did the darn thing. I was planning a new campaign, and I wanted my players to be able to know what classes and subclasses were available to them, because I have a lot of homebrew stuff or third-party material, and so I was just like, all right, I will put together a document that describes what those things are in brief, so they don't have to read them. And then I thought, you know what? Some of these are almost good to include, but I wouldn't want to include them without changes. And then it spiraled very quickly. and I emerged from that week-long fever dream with 112 pages of altered classes and subclasses.
So,
Yeah.
so when you
I
said
lost my mind.
when you said sick Dael, you really meant sick Dael, not just sick.
Yeah. I was physically ill, and I just wouldn't lie down. This is what I did instead of resting.
Dael. Dael, what the fuck? All right.
Dael, what the fuck indeed? That's exactly the question. I ask myself that every time I look at this.
That needs to actually like that listen, just listen y'all. Like artwork is great and like the second page is important changes, but you know what it actually needs? A little part in front of important changes that just says Dael, what the fuck?
Yeah. That's what that subheading should be, instead of, you know, where it usually says for the world's greatest role-playing game. Instead of that, it should just say Dael, what the fuck?
Okay, see, this subheading says not quite its own thing, but different enough to need an explanation. Yes, it should have definitely been Dael, what the fuck?
What the fuck, yeah.
And okay, let's get into my, overview questions before we dive in. And just for anybody that's curious, so like, the way this was broken down, right, is like that important changes. It made it very clear which classes and subclasses had major changes to them, which ones weren't 5e, which ones like weren't official 5e stuff, because I know there's like there's Matt Mercer stuff in here. There's like your journey stuff, of course, and then there's also I think there's also
some Grim Hollow.
Yeah, from Grim Hollow's Ghostfire. Yeah, I was like I recognize that exactly. For those listening and wondering, we are sticking exclusive, like the ones that had the major changes just happen to be like, standard 5e and the Gunslinger from Matt Mercer. And even if that wasn't the case, we were only going to be talking about those things because while both of us have all of these products, not everybody out there does, and we respect the intellectual property of third-party communities and homebrew. And
we respect
authors.
Also my right to not be sued.
Exactly, we respect Dael's right to not be sued. But on that note, we do not respect Wizards of the Coast. But anyway, so first general question: why no Blood Hunter or Artificer rework?
Okay, so for the most part, it's because I'm just not familiar enough with the Blood Hunter and the Artificer to have any clear concept of like what I want to change, if that makes sense. Like I'm familiar enough with all the base classes that I'm kind of just like, off the top of my head, I can kind of grab stuff and shift them around. I feel like if I went for the Artificer, and this is weak source, I should be on top of it. If I went for the Artificer, I would actually feel like I'd have to study it and go through and like actually pay attention to how it works, and it would take me all this extra time, whereas I could just ignore it. And there's 12 plenty good subclasses for people to choose from anyway, which is, I think it's very telling of me and the way that I work. But on top of that, I mean, just the other day, I was looking at the Blood Hunter. I was running a Christmas one-shot and I wanted someone to be a were-polar bear. And I was like, great, I'll use the Blood Hunter. It'll be great. And then I read it. I was like, this is complicated. This is a lot of stuff. Which is it's so hypocritical of me. Plenty of the stuff I've written is very complicated. But I was looking at it, I had in my head which player would probably choose the were-polar bear. I was correct, by the way. And I know that their eyes would have glazed over the minute I mentioned any of these hexes and things. And I was like, you know what? I'm just looking for a werewolf. So I went and I basically hacked together a bunch of stuff from Grim Hollow's werewolves and Matt Mercer's Blood Hunter werewolves and Blood Hunters in general, and just shoved them together until it worked. So, I mean, I feel like that gives an impression of how much work I would do on the Blood Hunter as a class had I included it.
Okay, now, Dael, now I want that. I want you to give me that so we can do like a little addendum to this so we can talk about it. Like, Dael, what the hell?
Yeah. I promise, the next time that I get sick after hanging out with some kids, I will enter another fever state. I will do some more
No, wait. You misunderstand me. You know what? First off, you know what? I don't begrudge Sick Dale not like wanting to do any like actual research and learn the artificer. I don't begrudge Sick Dale. Healthy you afterwards, yes, I definitely begrudge you that, but I respect your right not to do it. When I say I want that for the Blood Hunter, I want what you cobbled together for that one shot. Like that's
okay.
That's what I want to see.
It only goes up to level 3.
You know what? That's fine.
Somewhere.
I'm super curious. But I hear what you're saying. I have a player in my Friday games. It's Rise of Vecna, Dune Forgotten Realms, all of the bad guys won. It's on the Dmsguild. Plays a Blood Hunter, and I have no idea how his class works. And I'm really glad that I can trust him to know how his class works, because there's so much that goes into this. And honestly, like, because the Blood Hunter, like, yes, it's the class that is currently fulfilling the, like, werewolf fantasy for people, but because the Blood Hunter was so complicated, when me and Adam and another creator, Amber Litkey, made, like, Those Who Wander, and I was like, oh, I want a curse system. I want people to be able to turn into vampires and, like, upgrade as they get bigger, as they get higher levels and stuff. Like, I was even like, okay, we need to do something different with Therianthropy, because I'm like, just the class that's supposed to do it is so confusing and it's so frustrating to mess with.
It's so true. It's also tricky because it's just a subclass that does the lycanthropy, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, I suppose if I'm playing a werewolf, I want that to be my class more than anything, or I want it to be its own thing. I don't want it to be a subclass just because the Blood Hunter at its core is not necessarily that, and that's totally fine. It feels very Matt Mercer in that it is fulfilling a very specific design sort of fantasy, and it's doing that really well. But if I'm just looking for a werewolf to grab and play at a minute's notice, then there's a whole lot of extra complicated stuff that has nothing to do with being a werewolf that I don't want to learn.
Exactly. Way more, very much Witcher inspirations. Totally know, like, that's where he got it from, and can totally see that, like, that shining very clearly through. But, like,
yeah.
None of the, like, I've only played The Witcher 3, and I haven't even finished that. But as far as I'm aware, none of these games, like, fulfill the promise of, oh, I can just turn into a werewolf and do that. So, like, that makes sense. Okay. All right.
I feel threatened somehow.
You should, because
you're just doing the villain. You're doing the villain pose. You've steepled your fingers.
Next up, the barbarian. Why not add dexterity into rage?
I literally just never even thought about it. It's an interesting idea. Here's the thing that I will admit right now. I feel like the barbarian was happening towards the end of the Fever Dream, and so you'll note that while there are some pretty significant changes, it also has like less subclasses than it probably should, and that those subclasses, I think I did the Path of the Wild Heart, which is I renamed the Totem Warrior, but I changed a bunch of stuff in Totem Warrior / Wild Heart, and I think I did that early on, and then every other barbarian thing was late in the game, and so I was just running out of steam.
And for those of you that are never going to see this document, unfortunately, the available barbarian subclasses include Berserker, which, I think some people would argue is one of the worst barbarian subclasses. I don't know if I would argue that, but I know people will. The Totem Warrior, now called the Wild Heart, and the Zealot. Just those 3. Out of the, 6 plus.
To be fair, I mean, just to talk smack against Wizards of the Coast right now, but that's largely because those are the only ones that I find any value in from Wizards of the Coast.
You know what? Actually, hold on, Dale. Since you've said that, no, keep talking.
Wild Magic Barbarian has something cool to offer, but it also doesn't fit what I want a barbarian to fit, which is, I mean, it sucks to be my players, but, that's where I'm at, and you will meet me there. Or find a different DM. You're allowed to have fun the way that you want. But, as a result, there is no, Wild Magic Barbarian in my thing. And so these were the ones that I was like, these are salvageable, I'll chuck them in here. The Berserker I made changes to, and I think they are good changes, but I think I need to boost it even more.
I do agree that your changes to the Berserker, from what I've seen from people complaining about the Berserker, I do think your changes would fix a lot of that. So, the standard the subpar berserker from Wizards of the Coast, is what people typically complain about. But since you've said that those are the only subclasses that like actually spoke to you, now I have questions. All right, just like.
Have you just pulled up a list of the
I have
barbarians
actually.
subclasses?
I have
Great.
actually.
Hit me with them.
Okay. Yes. So official 5e subclasses for the barbarian: Ancestral Guardian, Battle Rager. We don't actually have to talk about the Battle Rager. We all know what's wrong with it.
I can't even. Ugh.
That was a mistake. Even putting that in there. Beast, Berserker, Storm Herald, Totem Warrior, Wild Magic, and Zealot. We've already got Totem Warrior, Zealot, and the Berserker. Now, you don't like in 3 words or less. What is wrong with the Ancestral Guardian?
3 words or less?
3 words or
3
less.
words or less?
3 words or less. If you can't do it, give me more.
Okay, wait. Didn't like it.
Damn. Okay, expand.
That's it. That's the whole thing. Let me pull it out. I gotta pull it up real quick. Okay. Ancestral Guardian.
While you're pulling it up, listen, y'all. Some barbarians hail from cultures that revere their ancestors. These tribes teach that the warriors of the past linger in the world as mighty spirits who can guide and protect the living. When a barbarian who follows this path rages, the barbarian contacts the spirit world and calls on these guardians for aid. Barbarians who draw on their ancestral guardians can better fight to protect their tribe and their allies. In order to cement ties to their ancestral guardians, barbarians who follow this path cover themselves in elaborate tattoos that celebrate their ancestors' deeds. These tattoos tell sagas of victories against terrible monsters and other fearsome rivals.
Yes. For me, I think the concept is very cool. I think it does stray too far from being a barbarian in some ways. But I largely was ready to forgive it. If I'm remembering correctly, I liked the concept, didn't like the mechanical implementation of the concept. And I think at the time I just thought, this is too much work. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna have to rewrite the whole thing, so for now I just won't do it. Is my recollection of what was happening at the time.
And do you feel like that's the case for most of the other ones? So again, we're not gonna even discuss the Battle Rager. Beast, Storm Herald.
Beast for me just feels like it's retreading ground, right? Like Beast for me feels like it's kind of correcting the weak sauce flavoring of Totem Warrior. It's just doing the same thing where it's like, oh, you're gaining these, animal strengths. And that's cool, but it's like, if I'm fixing the Totem Warrior, it seemed like it would just be retreading similar ground. And any of the other stuff that you get from it is kind of just like, I would rather be a werewolf. As previously discussed.
Yeah, I do gotta say though, if you get creative with it, there are some fun implementations you can do with the beast, like Saturday game Strange Hungers. One of our players, spoilers for anybody watching Strange Hungers and isn't this caught up, sorry, is a changeling and is a beast barbarian and is like incorporating the different like bestial parts into their actual changeling abilities and whatnot. Like you can have an interesting, an interesting character concept where it works, but like on its own, I can totally see what you're saying here. And what about the Storm Herald, friend?
Storm Herald is a similar unfortunate loss, like the Wild Magic Barbarian, where I'm like, this is actually fine, the design is fine, but flavor-wise it just doesn't fit with the kind of settings I tend to run or stories I tend to tell in terms of what the barbarian is doing. In those settings, it's like, I don't see why this couldn't be, a sorcerer, or I don't see why this couldn't be. It just seems like a way to make a magic user who also has high con. And I don't know. It was one of those things where it was a flavor clash more than anything else. So, my apologies to Storm Barbs and Wild Magic Barbs, but get out.
And on the note of like just having higher con, you can literally just make the sorcerer a Constitution caster.
You can just really make them exactly.
And we're gonna get back to that, the Constitution casting. But next up is the cleric, and I know you know what's coming because
I know what's coming.
I told you, but also even if I hadn't told you, you would know because we talked about this in the previous section. Why did you not change potent spellcasting and divine strike? This is your love child.
Yes, I know, but it's so much work. It was literally.
That's all it boils down to.
It was literally again, it was like I'm in the depths of redesigning the entire ranger, the entire fighter, and I was just like, do I want to restructure the cleric? No.
Okay.
One day it'll happen. One day it will.
Okay. And when that day comes...
This is my promise to you.
Okay. When that day comes, I'm sure you'll be brought on here before then, but when that day comes, you'll be brought back so we can talk about that some more.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what?
And if I don't do it, I will be dragged before you.
Truly.
For judgment.
You know what? I'll give you a year. I'll give you a year from today, so...
1 year?
Do you need more than that?
I gotta get sick. You have
to get sick to do this? Dale, did you not do any...
I'm waiting for the spark of inspiration, and apparently that only arrives when I have a fever.
Okay, so how about I send you a package that has, like, I don't know, cooties on it, and you get sick that way with
great.
Is that fine? You know what? I never fault anybody who's just like, I didn't want to do it. Because I'm sitting over here and I'm reading this.
I'm the big letdown. You're asking me legit questions that could have legit design answers, but the answer is no. which is fair. Like, I brought you on here to talk class design and why you did it, and sometimes people just need to hear, like, I didn't want to fucking do it, so I didn't do it right now. Maybe I'll come back to it. I'm going to hold you accountable to come back to it, but everybody else, don't feel the need to do that to yourself if it's really not what you want. Exactly.
Dale, I have a higher standard for Dale, so Dale has to do it. On to the next... Yeah, this is what you get for saying yes to coming on here. I appreciate that, by the way. On to the next general question before we get into the, specific things. Sorcerer. Why didn't you make them Constitution casters? And you know what? Yes, why didn't you make them con casters? Let me hear your answer before I, ream you about it.
The main reason is because of the wild magic origin. So I redid the entire wild magic sorcerer. It is entirely different from what it was before. Dear listeners, this was probably the main reason this document ended up happening was that, look, I'm gonna have to rewrite the entire wild magic sorcerer. Let's just do the whole damn PHP. But the wild magic sorcerer flavor-wise, I do think that charisma is a better fit than constitution, so I didn't want to take it away. And the other thing is that, but you can read me on this, is that I want warlocks to be intelligence casters, and I didn't do that. So if I change warlocks to intelligence casters, because in my head it's like Faustus, right? It's like learning all these secrets from some, devil or whatever, and so I want it to be about like study in a like dark foil of the wizard. So I want warlocks to be intelligence casters, and then we would have no charisma casters.
No, yeah, you're right. We wouldn't have. Wait, bards.
Oh, I forgot the bards exist.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, paladin is a half caster, but I was like, wait, you have bards. Listen, Dale.
You're right. But no,
okay.
I'm in camp sorcerers. You know what? Maybe we should just change it by subclass. Maybe we should literally just go in, especially because sorcerers get their subclass at level 1. We should literally just completely change the whole thing, and based on the subclass that you choose, that dictates what your casting stat is.
Exactly, and like you can just have a little table like, oh, hey, here's the subclass, here's the stat for when people are rolling their stats to build their character. Exactly. Yes. Although, to be fair, I think that's a great suggestion for what you're doing, but I've just made them concasters in my games, and it's been a great time. It's been a fun time.
It's legit.
Yeah. Fuck, any like thematic things that are, I can argue. Just to go on a slight tangent, small tangent.
Please.
I have and continue to argue in favor of Constitution casters, especially when people are like, it's about your soul, not your literal like blood. And I'm like, I agree that it is not about your literal blood, right? Unless it's specifically saying you draw power from your blood, which I don't think any of the sorcerers do. However,
Maybe dragon? I don't know.
Maybe dragon. However, the thing that people never do that I have found is like my saving grace, like I have clutched it and been like, I'm right because of this, is because in the player's handbook, and you can just type it into 5e or whatever, it tells you what each of the fucking stats actually measures, right? And hold on a second. Let me pull this up because I am actually
correct. Feels like an Uno reverse moment.
Exactly. Okay, listen. Constitution. Constitution measures health, stamina, and vital force. Now, health, stamina.
Vital force.
Exactly. Health, stamina. I'm like, yeah, no, nothing to do with the Constitution, with spellcasting. However, vital force, which never shows up in any other thing, as far as I'm aware. Not the player's handbook, not the monster manual, and not the dungeon master. So the only thing we can do from that is actually look up what the definition of vital force is, right? The energy or spirit which animates living creatures, the soul. So literally,
it's freaking mana.
Literally, from the definition of Constitution, my arguments that sorcerers, who I think most of their magic is like soul magic, and even is explicitly called out in some of the like fluff for some of the subclasses, should be Constitution. And that is my argument, Your Honor.
You know what else is that it does add a cool flavor element of like just by force of will. And I know that in 3rd edition and stuff, will was attached to wisdom, but I don't think that necessarily makes sense. But like by sheer force of like energy output, you are creating magic. That's kind of a cool thing. And then you know what else would happen if warlocks were int casters, wizards. Oh no, then we get the problem. Okay, wait. Bard's charisma, sorcerers con, warlocks int, wizards int. I want.
Okay, but we have
druids for wisdom.
We already have like the cleric and the druid both as wisdom, so there's nothing wrong with having 2 int classes because we previously had 3 charisma spellcasters.
There's like 3 full casters as well, and 3. Did I say 3 when I meant to say 6? Do I just not know numbers? I meant to say 6. There's like 6. There's like bard, wizard, druid, cleric, sorcerer. Which ones have I said? Ooh, this is bad.
Okay. You know what? Hold on a second. D&D 5e classes. Let's just pull this up and go down the line.
I've got it. Bard, cleric, druid, sorcerer, warlock, wizard. There's 6 of them.
Here's the question though. Please continue.
And we're not about to have a strength caster or a dex caster. So we're just gonna have to double up on some of them.
Exactly. We're gonna get back to the Kingsmill patch, but here's another question. Should warlocks be considered full casters though, given how their magic works?
Honestly,
I'm not saying they should be like half casters or 3/4 casters the way like artificers might be. Oh, is that what you're saying? Half casters or 3/4 casters?
This is a hill I have just made. This is not pre-thought out. This is a hill I am currently constructing. But I'm going to plant my flag and be ready to die on it at a moment's notice. But maybe warlocks should be half casters, because then you can pump them full of a bunch of cool like martial abilities on top of instead of all of their progression being tied to, oh, you now have another spell that you can cast that doesn't count as a spell, which is needlessly complicated. Instead of doing that, give them a bunch of cool martial stuff. And yeah, they don't have as many spells to cast, but that won't matter as much because you can give them cool, just like devil abilities or whatever based on who their patron is.
Exactly. And also to the point of like, I really think the only thing, like, you don't even have to change up, I don't even think you have to change up their like, their pact stuff, because it already starts at 5th level the way, and it only is 1 level higher than what the paladin stops at and stuff. So like you don't even have to really change that. You can leave that at 5th level, and then maybe don't give them the 6th, 7th, and the 6th through 9th level stuff, and just do other things there, and then put some extra shit in there. And if you're really worried about like, oh, they don't have enough spells, okay, you know what that means? You know what that means? Give them their expanded spell list for free. It's just in their shit.
Yes. Okay. Please. Yes. And the other thing is that the structure is actually, it's not dissimilar from an artificer. So I don't think that making them a half-caster would even be that big a deal, especially in terms of like Eldritch Invocations versus whatever the hell the artificer things are called.
Artificer
You know the ones.
infusions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are so fucking right about that, actually, because the Artificer goes from 1st to 5th level, and I think they're 3/4 casters or something like that, and they do get their infusions. Yeah.
What we've just done is live design. People, the good folks at home, live design.
God, Dael, we should talk about. You know what? We're gonna put a pin in this, and we're gonna come back to this at a later date, in a different format than a non-visual podcast. Holy hell. Okay. All right. Getting back on topic though. All right. So I've asked all of my general questions, all of my we're not diving into those classes and subclasses, unless you would like to bring anything up, of course.
I did literally just notice that there are only 2 wizard subclasses here, and that was another example of me going, none of these are bad enough to rewrite. They're not great, but they're not bad enough to rewrite. So I'll just rewrite whatever battle magic was originally called, and
War magic.
Yeah, so war magic, I rewrote war magic to battle magic, and I changed, what was chronomancy? What's the
Chronergy.
Chronergy. I hate that name.
I hate it.
So I rewrote it and changed its name. I don't think I even fully rewrote it. I think I just changed that, arcane abeyance problem. But apart from that, it's mostly the same. But I like that the wizard subclasses are literally just me going, look, this is a lot of effort. There's so many of them.
There's so many. Wizards really don't need all that much of. Also, on the note of chronomancy, are there 8 schools of magic? 9 schools of magic? Why not make it a 10th? Literally, chronomancy should be its own thing. I hate that in regards to the graviturgy. Well, you know what? Maybe 11, because maybe gravity stuff should have its own thing. But all the chronomancy stuff should be under chronomancy. God damn it. Graviturgy doesn't really fit the chronomancy vibes, but or maybe it should stay in different.
Time and space.
Is that what chronomancy? I always thought it was just time.
Well, chronomancy is just time, but I'm adding the space.
You know what? Fair.
You know what?
Fair. You know what? It's all fake. We can do what we want.
It's all made up. It's all a weird soup. Newton was wrong.
Okay. Let's dive into this. So, first up is the fighter, which went through major changes as a main class, and then also changes to the battlemaster, champion, and gunslinger.
Yeah.
Now.
And I invented a whole new subclass out of nowhere because I just decided I wanted more.
Yes.
That's a question for Fever Dael.
We're not even gonna... We're gonna leave Fever Dael alone. For the moment. Just for the moment. But first, some of the big noticeable change for fighter. You moved combat maneuvers and superiority dice to the base class. Tell me about the process for the fighter and this decision.
Oh, sure did. This is... I don't think it's an uncommon approach to people who are rewriting the fighter, because ultimately, when it comes to the player's handbook subclasses for the fighter, the Battlemaster is just more fun. It is more fun than any of the other fighter subclasses. The best argument I've had that I've heard for the champion fighter, which I have tried to play multiple times. I was like, oh yes, this description sounds like exactly what I wanted. And what a nightmare of a time I had. But the best argument that I've heard people use for the champion fighter is, oh, but new players want something simple. And I'm like, okay, but they don't want something boring. And I think there's a real issue that comes up both in the fighter core class and in several of the subclasses, which is that too many of their abilities, in my opinion, are passive abilities. They're not things that you choose to activate. You have very limited uses of those unless you're a battle master, and they're just things like, oh, a 19 or a 20 is a crit, which is mathematically great, but in practice, you forget, because a 19 isn't as exciting on a dice as a 20 is. When you roll a 20, you go, ooh, nat 20, and you remember that it's a crit. When you roll a 19, you're like, that's a good roll, but you have to actually remember that it's still a crit, or that an 18 is a crit, or, you know, depending on level. And I think there's a few abilities like that where it's really just like, this is a thing that is always true that I could easily forget about, and even if I don't forget about it, it's really static, and it feels like there's nothing to do. The other major issue that I have, because I love playing fighters. I know earlier I said that I'm a rogue main, and that's true, but I also often find myself playing fighters. I love martials. And the fighter, as you experience it, there's this really awkward clash where it abandons the fantasy of competence. You're playing a character who their entire thing is that they're good at hitting stuff with a sword or whatever. And you can just as easily roll a 1 as anybody. Actually, you roll them easier than most people because you're rolling more attacks. And spellcasters don't have to roll half the time, you know, or most of the time even. So here, your thing is, I'm good at hitting stuff with my sword, but you roll that 1, and no matter how many bonuses you have to it, it just sucks. It's just the worst feeling in the world. And as you roll more attacks, it actually just becomes more likely. And if you're unlucky, you have a DM who has like fumble tables. It's just, it almost mimics the feeling of embarrassment. I won't call it genuine embarrassment because you're still at the table with your friends having a good time, but you feel embarrassed on behalf of your character. Like, you trained for years, you're a veteran soldier, and you just dropped your sword fighting goblins. Like, it's not a good time. So even just taking the maneuvers from the Battlemaster, which lots of people have talked about, I'm sure, taking them and giving them to the core class at least gives you that fantasy of competence, because it lets you add an extra die to make it like more likely that you're going to do the cool thing. It lets you choose what you're doing, give flavor to your attacks. It lets you, it gives you agency where you didn't have it before, and it lets you feel like you have trained. These are maneuvers that you have that other people don't have because you're a fighter and this is what you're good at. And that was kind of the core principle of, you know, the design. It was what was driving me as I was rearranging the cosmos.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I, of course, have heard, not just you, other people like, hey, just move this to the main class. Just give everybody access to it. Okay, so there are a couple more things here, right? So you added some new fighting styles, right? You removed Second Wind from the main class.
I know.
You removed. I saw it and I was like, wait a minute. Where did Second Wind go?
The rush I got when I made that choice, but I did it because I had to give cool stuff to the champion. And whatever I replaced what did I replace the Battlemaster with? I kept the Battlemaster, but just changed what their thing was, didn't I? Which, interesting. But yeah, I was like, I gotta take some of this stuff from the champion and give them cool stuff from the core class instead. I gotta give them active choices, because the champion has no active choices, and one of those was Second Wind. I was just like, hey, maybe the champion is just like naturally adept and physically kind of gifted, I guess, when it comes to this stuff. So I thought, do I dare? And I dared. I gave it to the wind.
Okay, see, that makes sense, because I was literally thinking, like, okay, like, when I read the full class, it was like, why is Second Wind gone? Like, what does Dael have against Second Wind? Like, what is the problem with it as an ability? And then I got to Champion, and I was like, okay, it's here, so it's not that bad, but it's not in the... Okay, you know what? I respect that decision. That is a really good decision, actually.
That's my better constructed hill that I will die on.
That is a good hill, actually, given the explanation. Okay, on the note of fighting styles of battle maneuvers. Okay, so there were a number of changes, right? So fighting styles, you added ambush fighting, you removed blind finding, you had hand-to-hand combat, which, you know, replaced unarmed, you removed interception, added legionary, you made some changes to thrown weapon fighting, and you updated two-weapon fighting. Now, I'm not going to ask you to sit here and go through every single one of those about why you did it, but if you had to pick one to explain why it was added, why it was changed, or why it was removed.
Ooh, interesting.
Your choice.
That's a good question. So the broad strokes of the changes was that I was being really brutal. I just looked at, on D&D Beyond they include all the like Tasha's editions and everything, and you can see all the different fighting styles from all the different sources. And I just went through that list and was so brutal. I was like, that's too boring, get rid of it. I don't like it, get it out of here. And just anything that didn't like meet my immediate like
spark joy
thought out standard. Yeah, if it didn't spark joy, that's a great way of describing it. If it didn't spark joy, I got rid of it. Let's see, what's a good specific one to talk about? I think I changed protection. I made a little change to protection, and it's maybe not the most dramatic one to talk about, but it kind of does demonstrate what the design ethos was. So the changed version is protection. When a creature within 5 feet of you attacks a target other than you, or a creature within 5 feet of you is the target of an attack, you can use your reaction to reduce the result by 1d6. So the main change that happened there was that instead of it just being you have to be next to the creature that is being targeted, you can also use your protection bonus if you're next to the creature who's targeting. So you can get up in the face of the archers and stop them from hitting the wizard or whatever, because it's just this tiny little change that ultimately doesn't have that many different sort of battle implications. But the original version where you had to be next to the character who's being attacked really locks your character down. In a class that already has so few choices, you're being locked down so you can't even move around and choose what target you're attacking in combat. If you want to use that benefit, you have to be next to the weakling that you're trying to protect. And, there are certain character builds or stories where that might fit, but there are just a couple of fighting styles where I'm like, wow, it feels like I'm being punished. It feels like you're actively taking something away from me with this choice. And I just wanted them all to be things that A, added flavor to a character, and B, felt like they encouraged certain play styles rather than punishing certain play styles.
No, that makes perfect sense. Like, I was reading and I was like, oh, that's nice. Like, I'm also like, I'm a big fan. I think I mentioned this on TikTok recently because somebody did a video and they were just like, how do I like engage with my players in the way that like if there is a big monster and it's terrorizing the town, or maybe that wasn't the setup, but I think the person that wasn't the setup. The person that I was talking to was like, hey, sick a big monster on them in which they have to try and like help the townsfolk and stuff. And then my critique was like, hey, that's cool. However, outside of very specific builds, and even then inside of those builds, because protection only works in a certain way, like most players aren't going to have options to actually, like, let's say you're fighting a fucking storm giant and it's storming around on the ground. Like, if a NPC is about to get stomped on, what are your players actually allowed to do in that situation? And that's why I was like, oh, let's just give them a rescue option. Like, they can forego their next turn if they just want to be like, hey, I'm using my rescue option and I'm going my movement, bonus action, and action right now to save this person.
That's cool. See, exactly. That's cool. It's dynamic. It adds pace. It lets them do something right now in the moment that they want to do something. Because it really, there's a lot to be said for stopping that cycle that is unfortunately common in D&D and other tabletop RPGs as well, where it's like, oh, I want to act right now because this is a roleplay game and I'm in it, and then you're going, no, that's not how the rules work, because that's not fun, and you want to keep the fun going,
And I can see what they were thinking for the protection, because in my first iteration of like the first product I ever made, Restless, a guide to laying incorporeal undead to rest. Nobody go buy that right now. It needs a complete redo. Like, don't even look at it. But something I added into it was because I wanted to like give people the ability to do like, what is it? What's it called? When exorcisms. When
nice.
Yeah, right. And I was like, oh, okay. So one player has to do the exorcism, and then that player could be harmed or attacked. So it's like, okay. So then the other players have to have an option to do something. And I made up something called Meat Shield, which I do think you had to be within like a certain range of people, and you had a couple of options for it. But it definitely had like more maneuverability than protection did, but it was still in the same vein. And like, okay, I can see why they were going with that. Like that's the first thing I did too. And I don't even think that I like had really had protection in my mind at that point, because like I wasn't that all up to date and stuff with the classes. I was just like, listen, I'm just gonna make this. I don't care what class. It can go on any class. Here you go. But also, as I grew as a designer, I was like, okay, all of this needs to be completely reworked. And I'm like, y'all have had time in every single book to move past this. But getting off that tangent, same question that I just asked about, like, the fighting styles, but for battle maneuvers, because those also got some changes, some things were removed. So which one would you pick that really gets to the design, for you?
Right, so the maneuvers underwent the same thing. the really brutal, I don't like it, that's boring, this is too complicated, get rid of it. Does it spark joy? Let me see, what is it? Let me see. I'm trying to see which ones underwent the most change and see if I have anything to say about them. But
if not, that's fine.
Yeah, I think these underwent fewer changes than the fighting styles, because I think largely they were better designed. I mean, rip Wizards of the Coast, but it's true. But I think there were a couple in there that I did change. I might have changed Ambush a little bit because I had Ambush Fighter as one of the fighting styles. So when you make a dexterity stealth check on an initiative roll, you can sort of spend one superiority. I also think that I took some stuff from, I could be remembering this wrong, but I also think that I took some stuff from like what is that subclass even called? The Chevalier? Is that a
Cavalier?
Cavalier. Thank you. I was confusing with a Dragon Age thing. But
I was about to ask, does it start with a C? Because I was like, is that what you're thinking of?
Exactly that. The Cavalier has some cool ideas in it, but also it's kind of muddied by the fact that it is so clearly designed to be like you're on a horse and you have a lance, right? And so I was like, what if I rescue these little things that the Cavalier could do, and instead of including the Cavalier at all, I just give that to the fighting styles. And I think that, not the fighting styles, the battle maneuvers, I think that sort of stuff ended up working well, but it was an interesting thing trying to not tread the same ground with some of the battle maneuvers compared to the fighting styles, once they were all kind of thrown into the pot together. And I haven't reread it in a while, so I mean, fingers crossed that it worked out.
I think it did work out really well. Okay, so I have a general question about all the subclasses, and then, okay, so there are 3 subclasses in here that got like major changes. I have also had you here for what's 45 plus 45 in time wise, like an hour and a half.
90 minutes, an hour and a half. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to keep you forever, even though you don't have anything after this. I'm willing to stay up until like 3 o'clock in the morning because I hate myself. But do you? Okay. I really want to ask you about the gunslinger because I love guns. However, would you prefer me to ask you about the battle master or the champion instead?
I have some things I want to say about the gunslinger as well, because I think that it is interesting in terms of, I don't know, the design process. But go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, so the question is, tell me about the choice to give all of the fighter subclasses archetypal maneuver. I understand the battle master getting it because it's the actual class, the subclass that had the maneuver at first, but why everyone else, since they already get maneuvers and superiority dice from the main class?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I know that at one time I had the answer, because I remember I wasn't doing it and something really specific made me do it, and I don't remember what it was, but I think it was something along the lines of, it might have even launched from the gunslinger, because there was this moment of they would basically have to spend all of their maneuver choices on the things that make sense for, a ranged attack or whatever. It was going to use up all those things, and at some point I was like, they're not getting choices here, they're just getting, this has to be what I do. And so I thought, if I just give everyone an archetypal thing, then it becomes something they get for free that tells them something about how this subclass plays, but it also means that they're free to make some, maybe technically suboptimal, but more fun choices that they want to make. I think that was the ultimate decision. I don't remember exactly what kicked it off, but I think it might have been that.
Gotcha. That's, you know what? No, yeah, that's really good. I was really just like, huh, that is a choice. Not a bad choice. So I was like, maybe not what I would have went with, but that's a really good one. And just for anybody who's listening, like the archetypal maneuvers, essentially, they all give you an additional superiority die, and then they give you a specific combat maneuver that's like really makes sense for your class, for your subclass. So like, it's not just something random. It's like, oh, hey, this is perfect for this. Here you go, get it for free. And then you free up all of the choices moving forward. Okay. On to the gunslinger, because you did a lot.
I did. Go ahead. Sorry.
You did a lot to this class, right? Like, going through it, I was like, because like, I think the majority of us, when we think gunslinger, we are literally thinking Percival DeRollo the Third. I really should have got that name. But anyway, we're thinking of Percy DeRollo, and one of the main
Percival von Musel Kowalski. No, there's a Frederickstein in there. Percival Frederickstein von Musel Kowalski DeRollo the Third. Is that his name? I feel like we're close.
Percival Frederickstein close. I can't say the KL DeRollo the Third. I can't say it. Okay, anyway, and I think when you think Percy, you think guns and you think misfire. And you completely got rid of that. There is no misfiring, there is no getting proficiency in tinkering tools so that you can be able to fix it. There's no ability that like, it's like, oh, you can fix it as a bonus action. So like...
Interesting.
Yeah, tell me.
Let me explain myself. So, basically, as I was coming through the fighter, that same ethos kept coming back around over and over again of how much it sucks to roll a 1. I was thinking about my poor character, who when I roll a 1, because I'm a DM, every time I'm playing as a character, I do roll a lot of 1s. And so if I'm a fighter and it already sucks to roll a 1, I was thinking, I just kept coming back to the frustration that I would feel if I misfired on a gun when my only thing is being the gun guy. And it makes so much sense. I think it's a solid design. Like there's genuinely nothing wrong with it. This was not what I needed to redesign, but boy did I. But amongst the things that I was sort of looking at, I was like, you know what? Instead of the complication of misfires and Tinker's tools and this sort of thing, what if instead I just pull back the power of the guns? So the guns in this subclass follow a similar structure to the black powder weapons that exist in Grim Hollow. I think I boosted them a little bit because black powder weapons in Grim Hollow are sort of so commonplace, whereas this is a little bit less usual. So I boosted them a little bit, I think, but it's it's sort of in the vein of pistols are like 2d4 or whatever, right? So it is doing consistently more damage on average, but it's not game-breakingly powerful.
Yeah.
And as a result, by pulling back that power level, I was able to remove the misfires without kind of unbalancing things. And I kind of stand by it, even though I think that the other design is good and flavorful, and even though immediately the first player to choose to play a gunslinger after I created this document was like, I'm going to be a gunsmith who makes my own guns. And I was like, you know what? That is, yep. That sounds about right. But I still kind of stand by it in that I feel like, you shouldn't have to be the tinkerer gun maker. You should be able to be a highwayman or a cowboy or whatever, if that's what you want to be. The reason that I want to talk about this and that I think the gunslinger is interesting is that I'm already in the process of gutting and redesigning even this gut and redesign that I did. So I already made so many changes on this document, and now I'm doing it again, because looking at it after I regained my full senses after the illness, I think it works, but I think I'm gonna fully remove trick shots, which I think is basically the last remnant of Mercer's Gunslinger, which is wild, and I don't know how it's gonna go, but I think I'm fully getting rid of trick shots because at this point I'm looking at it and there's so many meta currencies that you have to keep track of now, because you've got the Battlemaster maneuvers in the core class, so you've got to look at the maneuver dice, and then on top of that you've got the trick shots. The thing I'm gonna miss most is grit, that that refuels when you get killed. I think that's such a cool design element. That's like one of my favorite things. But I think I am basically getting rid of the last remnant of Mercer's Gunslinger and just making it a whole separate thing, which is a sign that I have gone too far and I must be stopped.
I don't think it actually is a sign that you've gone too far, because I thought you were making it a class. That's what I thought was happening here when you said, "Oh, I'm re-gunning." I was like, "Are you turning this into a class? Are you making it a gunslinger class?" Because think about it. If you made it, I'm not telling you should do this, Dale. Let's be clear here. I'm not saying you should, but I'm not saying you shouldn't. If you made it a whole class, then you really could have the highwayman, the actual gunsmith,
or the sniper,
exactly. You could have like all these different archetypes then, because
I have thought about it,
and it would make
Sorry,
like. And like when I think, and like when I was thinking about the misfire, and like listening you say, "Oh, I'd be miserable. I don't like this." Like I understand that, because I also wouldn't like it. But then there's also the other part where like I was like, I feel like it's kind of different, right? Because when you fuck up with like just the sword, it's like, man, like this is just my hand and a weapon. But the gun is a mechanical element, and those things do break, even if you are like let's take the U.S. military, right? Even if you are the best sniper in the world, your weapon can fuck up. Even if you clean it all the time, even if it's in mint condition, something can go wrong. Exactly. Something can go wrong in those internal mechanisms that have nothing to do with your skill. And then it's just like, shit out of luck, homie. Yeah. But no, yeah, I agree. Okay, I understand.
I think this is so. I mean, just for the listeners at home, the reason that I wanted to mention that specifically is because I think it's a great example of the sort of fail early, fail often thing, which is it's something that we were taught in my digital media sort of minor that I got at uni. But it was basically, we kept having to do projects where you just pitch an idea and you do it from the very beginning, and then you find out what doesn't work and you try again and you try again and you try again, and it, any number of different projects came out of it. They were called digital artifacts. So like it went all the way from, mine was creating just a Facebook page that recaptioned all of the sort of promo photos that the university put out, because they all had this apocalyptic filter on them. So I would just recaption them. So instead of being about this nice old man who's graduated at the age of 82 or whatever, I've recaptioned it to be about zombies, right? That's just what the situation was. That was mine, versus another guy in my class created a 3D printed prosthetic hand that could shake hands. It really spanned a lot of different things, but the whole point of it was just pick a thing and start doing it and reiterate over and over and over again. But the message of it was fail early, fail often, because if you fail from the very beginning, then you know what to fix. So don't be scared to try something. And so that's kind of, I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's a great thing to have in your head when you're designing stuff. And that's what's happening with the Gunslinger right now. It's like, well, I changed the whole damn thing and now I'm looking at it, I don't think I'm happy with it. Gotta change it again.
Okay, yes, exactly. Dale, there's two more things I want to ask about the Gunslinger, and then we're going to go over to the Monk. Unless you want to talk about anything about the Champion or the Battlemaster, because
go for it.
Once again, I will stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, so there's bullet time, which, okay, actually, why didn't I, man, Vic, here we go. I already have the thing pulled up so I can actually just scroll down to it. Okay, bullet time. Starting at 10th level, when a hostile creature misses you with an attack roll, or you succeed on a dexterity saving throw, you can use your reaction and spend a grit point to immediately make an attack with a firearm. Where did that inspiration come from? Because when I was reading it, I was like, you know what this makes me think of? Red Dead Redemption. That's like...
Oh, yeah. It wasn't Red Dead Redemption, but it was video games. So it was, what's that game called? Because I never played it, but we had this show in Australia called Good Game, which was just a review show for video games. And they reviewed this game, and this one thing has always stuck in my head. It was I don't know, is there like a Miami Vice video game? I don't know. There was some video game where they were talking in this review about something that was called literally bullet time, but it was like when you're shooting, everything goes into slow-mo, so you can kind of dodge out of the way of bullets at the same time as you're shooting. And I was like, that's really, really cool. And it just stayed in my brain until I was writing this Gunslinger, and I thought, that's it. That's what they need. They need to be able to shoot stuff as they're jumping out of the way of an explosion.
Okay. No, that is amazing. And like, I I don't know, because the first thought I had for the Miami is like Grand Theft Auto, but I don't think that's accurate.
It wasn't Grand Theft Auto, but it was something that was a very similar kind of genre of game, though. So whoever out there is listening and knows the game that I'm talking about, I've never played it, and yet it was the inspiration.
The next thing, Dael, one shot, one kill. Literally, let me read you the thing I said. Whoa. Let me read this out loud. Upon reaching 18th level, when you take the attack action on your turn, you may choose to forego all extra attacks, instead making one firearm attack. If you score a hit with the attack, the creature must make a Constitution saving throw against your trick shot save DC. On a success, you deal damage equal to 3 damage rolls with the firearm. On a failure, listen to this, people, 18th level, on a failure, the creature drops to 0 hit points. Once you use this ability, you cannot do so again until you finish a long rest. Dael, you are a DM. You and I are DMs. We know that even if we make them... Let me give you an example. I made a legendary werewolf called the Dread Wolf for my Friday game. I gave him 300 hit points. There were 3 7th level players and 1 additional werewolf. That was the Dread Wolf's daughter, whatever. Druid, which the class makeup might be the problem, but we also know that that's not always the case. Druid, Paladin, Bloodhunter. They brought down my guy with nobody dying. Did I knock the Bloodhunter out twice? Yes. Did that fucker get back up? Yes. You know what can happen to our BBEGs, and you just gave something that could insta drop a BBEG if I roll if we roll poorly.
No. Let me explain.
Okay, please
Let me explain.
Tell me I'm wrong.
This is my argument. Okay, so originally I was going to, I think I originally wrote it out to follow basically the same pattern as power word kill, where it's like if they're under a certain number of hit points, blah blah blah. And I didn't like it. It didn't feel right. And this is my argument, right? So you're 18th level. So anything that you're fighting that doesn't have legendary resistances is expendable. That's fine. It feels cool to like shoot a fire giant in the head and they die. They immediately drop, right? That's cool. That's fine. If they are an important enough character, they will have legendary resistances. So if you use the ability too early, they'll just use their legendary resistance and save on the throw, and you've wasted the ability because you can't do it again until you finish a long rest, right? So you can't use it too early. So instead, you have to wait out the battle until they have used all 3 legendary resistances, and then if they happen to fail that saving throw, they will drop and die. But it means that you've had to actually have the patience to wait until a moment where it would feel dramatically appropriate. That's what my excuse is there.
You know what, Dael? I can't even argue that. Because you're right. However, I was a dummy and didn't give my Dreadwolf any legendary resistances. I gave him legendary reactions.
You had a legendary wolf and you didn't give them legendary resistances?
I forgot. That was... Listen.
To be fair, there is a lot that you have to keep in your head, and it is easy to forget that stuff.
Truly.
But yeah, I mean, the thing that I will say, it's not foolproof design either, because like at the same time this is taking into consideration one character, right? And if the party happens to be constructed from characters who all target saves, right? Like if you've got a party of wizards plus a gunslinger and they all in
cleric,
one round,
druid,
yeah, so then the DM has to be mindful enough to be thinking ahead and being like, do I bother using the save on this, right? So there is a lot of room for this to go very, very poorly. And I thought briefly, this is where I get the power of this being the Kingsmill patch rather than something I've published on Dmsguild, right? Is that this shows the difference between design work that I will publish for other people to use and design work that I'm the only one who's going to be using it. Because if I was publishing this, I 100% would change that ability. No way would I put that out into the world to punish other DMs. But if I'm the only one who's getting slapped in the face with it, totally fine, right? Like I brought that on myself. So I will give my players overly powerful stuff in subclass design if I know that it's something that only I'm gonna have to deal with. Because as well, it's on me to remember those things like the legendary resistances and when to use them and when not to and blah blah blah.
Okay, but you realize now that you've given me this document, you have now passed this on to me as well.
Yeah, you've been cursed. This is a hex that I bestow upon you.
Actually cursed me here. Or have you cursed my players? Because I might not give this to them. I might just turn it into a legendary gun. Like, you know,
use it for the bad guys, yeah.
Yeah, what the fuck is it called? Wynonna Earp, she has that fucking gun Peacemaker or whatever.
Yes.
Like, this is what Peacemaker does. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good. I've hexed you and I've hexed all of the mods on my Discord. Those are the only people really who have access to this document in full.
Oh my god, Dael. Okay. Alright, Dael. We're at the 1 hour and 40-minute mark.
You gotta edit this. There's no way the listeners should have to put up with me just talking for this long.
I disagree. They come here for this. And if they don't like it, they can skip it. So we have the monk, the paladin, the ranger, and the sorcerer left. Which one, if you could only pick one for us to talk about, which is exactly what's going to happen, because I will bring you back after you've made your other changes to the other stuff, and we will talk about the ones left over. Which one do you want to talk about?
Okay, look, I know that there's a lot to be said about the monk, but I want to talk about the ranger.
I knew that's what you were going to say. I knew it. I was like, I don't even know why I'm asking this. I should have just said the ranger. But yes, let's talk about the ranger. The ranger went through major changes as well, and the Beastmaster subclass. And also, hold up, let me just double check what many subclasses the ranger has now from your shit. Okay.
Oh, I kept the Gloomstalker. The Gloomstalker didn't get much change.
The Gloomstalker is a great class.
Maybe a little bit, but yeah.
Okay, so there's...
It mostly stayed the same.
There's the Beastmaster, Gloomstalker, Hunter, and Wild Warden, which I believe is Ghostfire, correct?
No, Wild Warden
yes?
I made from scratch.
You made that one from scratch? Okay, we're gonna touch on that in a second. Please tell me about the Ranger. Tell my listeners about the Ranger, because I follow you pretty much everywhere you are, especially YouTube, so I know about the Ranger, but please.
Yeah, so the Ranger, I'm one of those people. You've encountered them, I'm sure, on Reddit, on Twitter, in the YouTube comment section. I'm one of those people who doesn't want the Ranger to be inherently magical. It's not that I think that the Ranger as a class shouldn't have any access to magic, but I just don't understand why the Ranger has to be mad. I don't understand why it has to be a half-caster. It's always bugged me, because for me, the Ranger is like... It's like Aragon, right? It's Strider. It's this person who's, you know, skilled in battle, but they're skilled at tracking, and they're skilled at like bush medicine and foraging and stuff. It's about that stuff. And so it drives me completely up the wall that it's like, here's your first level ability. You will never need to forage for anything ever. Here's your, you know, your spells. The minute that you get your spells, here you go, good berry. You not only do you not have to forage ever, you will have access to magic food that is better than any food. I just don't like it, flavor-wise. So instead, I rewrote the core class to be a martial class and created, this is what the Wild Warden is, I created a half-caster subclass for the Ranger, kind of in the vein of Eldritch Knight. But by the way, I tweaked both Eldritch Knight and made the Wild Warden a little bit cooler, a little bit boosted, because at that point I'm like, okay, well, I have relegated you to a subclass caster, so I feel like you gotta get something for your trouble, so made them a bit fancier. But yeah, that was kind of the thing. It was, I wish that the magic for the Ranger was a subclass instead of the core class. That was kind of the base for the whole thing. And also, while I'm on my soapbox, can I just say how weak sauce, piss weak as we would say in Australia, the favorite enemy is in the player's handbook, in the original, piss weak. The favorite enemy is just so rubbish. You get nothing, and then they have the gall to say, at level such and such, you get to choose another favorite enemy, and I'm like, oh great, I get nothing twice, thanks so much. I have a lot of bones to pick with the Player's Handbook Ranger, and even though it definitely was improved in Tasha's, don't get me wrong, I just didn't think that they did enough, so I changed everything.
I respect that. Now, I have some questions about the like the base class. So there's Hunter's Quarry, right? Which I really liked when I saw it. I was like, oh, like when because I skipped. I didn't look at the I did not look at the, like, you know, the part of it that tells you, like, the class features table. I was like, I'm just going to dive into it. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to compare it. And at first I thought, oh, is this a replacement for favorite enemy? Because, like, listen, starting at first level, you have the iron focus of an experience tracker. You may choose one creature you can see within 90 feet and tag it as your prey as a bonus action. You double your proficiency bonus on any wisdom perception or wisdom survival checks you make to find or track it. Only one creature can be tagged by you at a time. The effects last for 8 hours. You can activate this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. Like, I was reading that and I was like, huh, is it supposed to be replace favorite enemy? I'm not seeing any, like, combat stuff, but this is really cool. And then I scroll down and I'm like, oh, okay, here's favorite enemy. But in my head, I was like, you know how you can get into, like, so first, I noticed in favorite enemy that you don't have humanoids, which is great because you get into some really weird shit.
Oh, it gets very weird.
Yeah,
very quickly.
When you have humanoids, especially if it was like, hey, pick two types of humanoids,
Yeah.
like
it's
orcs
such a
or
weird
goblins,
legacy holdover thing. Yeah, and I mean, I get that it presumably came from a place of like, ooh, cool, like a bounty hunter. But then at a certain point, you're like, okay, but why is the bounty hunter like better at tracking orcs than humans? Like, why? Mm-hmm. That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
What is the functional difference, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think part of what I'm asking here is, why not? Okay, I get that Hunter's Quarry is the first level ability, but why not, since you are in charge here, combine Hunter's Quarry with favorite enemy so that it's not even about you having like, oh, I'm really knowledgeable about dragons, or I'm really knowledgeable about this. Like, oh, I have studied the variety of creatures that are, you know, across the plane as someone who maybe you came across them because you're such a wide traveler, and I can, as a bonus action, be able to track you really well, and if, you know, combining favorite enemy can also get some combat advantages against you. And then that way, if you want to say, I'm a bounty hunter and I'm great at tracking humanoids, you don't get into like weird racist essentialist bullshit, which you removed humanoids, so you don't have that in there in the first place, but like,
yeah.
So I was just curious on that.
So, I mean, it's a good question. That's a good approach to it as well. Like, that's legit. But so the reason that it ended up this way was Hunter's Quarry was a replacement for the fact that Hunter's Mark as a spell was another essential pick, right? Like we were talking about that just before, the idea of this is your spell list, but you're gonna take Hunter's Mark. You know, it's like Eldritch Blast. Everyone is right when they say that should just be a class feature. It shouldn't be a spell that you have to choose. It should be its own separate thing because it is so essential to the class and how it works. So I wanted something that was the equivalent of Hunter's Mark, but I didn't want it to do the same thing as Hunter's Mark because I didn't want to have to get into the territory of rewriting all the spells. So I was like, instead of getting into the guts of the spell list that rangers would have access to for the Wild Warden, they can just take Hunter's Mark and it will do a slightly different thing and interact with Hunter's Quarry in a slightly different way. The other thing is just that I think it comes down to liking this idea of being a dragon hunter, right? Like the first time that I played Skyrim and the dragon attacks that starting town, I remember being so afraid when, you know, there's this like narrow alleyway that you go through and the dragon lands on the wall right beside you and roars, and I was so scared. And I remember watching it flying away and thinking, I'm gonna become a dragon hunter. Like specifically, that is the character I'm building, is someone who has gone from zero to hero and has become someone who specializes in hunting dragons. And so for me, it was just that. For me, there is value in that flavor of being like, I don't know, man, I'm just really good with oozes or whatever. Like, you know, this is my specialty subject. But I don't think that that's any more or less valuable than like your suggestion just then. Like, you are completely right. You get this trade-off then of like, hey, now you can specialize in stuff without it being weird. You're 100% right. Like, yeah, it was just this interesting little, I guess personal. Yeah, I think it was that thing of I'm writing this for me, so I may as well do it that way. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Here's a question. So I know you're writing this for you. But one, if you had a player that was like thinking like me, or if in some wild future you would publish this stuff, some alternate universe. What do you think about, how they give you the things like, hey, this replaces this. And they're like, ooh, hey, if you take this, you don't get these two.
Yeah. I think that would be a great way of doing it. I mean, it'd also be a very easy way of doing it without having to,
be like, hey, you like this better? Here you go.
A million things. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's a great idea. And I will take it, and I will put it in my pocket, and I will keep it for later.
Happy to help. Okay, anything else you want to talk about the base class before we move on to the Beastmaster and the Wild Warden?
Let's see. Rover, I made part of the thing. I mean, I know that it's an optional thing from the actual stuff, but I'm just saying it should absolutely... I don't think it should even be optional. I think it should just be part of the core class.
Rover is really good. And I think
favorite terrain gets you extra stuff now. Like, you have initiative bonuses while you're in your favorite terrain, stuff like that.
That's good.
I don't know. I just put in a lot of optional stuff that I think should be base. And then I think the high level stuff I completely built from scratch, which were just Scent Blood, which is basically when a creature is bloodied, for starters, and then on top of that, you do extra damage on your next attack against them, because it's like, aha, we've got him. Let's go harder. Get him, boys.
And then Foeslayer
is like, it's another do a ton of damage all at once, but instead of having it be like the Gunslinger's, one shot, one kill, I built it so that it kind of stacks on top of your other bonuses. So if you have your Hunter's Quarry and your favorite enemy and your, if you happen to have Hunter's Mark, and if you stack it all up on top of each other, and you get a really cool bonus with Foeslayer. But yeah,
it is a really good rework. Like, every time I've read everything, I'm like, am I considering changing out the ranger in my home? I don't know. We'll see. Or am I considering saying, hey, there are multiple types of rangers throughout the world. Here you go.
Once I add that optional thing, then you'll consider it.
Okay, so let's talk about the Beastmaster. There were some really good changes in here. Like, just to talk about, like, to start off with the Ranger's Companion. Previously, you could only have a Ranger Companion that was 1/4 challenge rating, which anybody that watches Critical Role knows that does run into some problems, especially with, like, as you get higher, and your little guy does not get stronger with you, and unless the DM's just like, I'm not going to kill your animal companion, that's kind of fucked up. You do run into the problem of, like, and in the base class, it's like, oh, you can get a new one after X amount of time. And it's not necessarily saying that you get the same one coming back from the dead, but I don't see that in here. But please tell me about the Beastmaster.
So this is a weird one, just in terms of I made some changes when I added it to the Kingsmill patch, but largely this was a subclass that I wrote several years ago. There's a video of it on my channel where I was reworking it for the first time. I think I was on a flight back from LA, and I hate flying. Long haul flights are bad. But for the first time ever, I had an internet connection on that flight. And I passed the time by asking people, like, what is the thing you imagine when you think about being a Beastmaster Ranger? What's the cool scene that plays in your head? What's the cool thing that you want to be able to do? And so people gave me these little narrative snippets of, like, bonding with their wolf companion, or, training their tiger, or, any number of things. You've got your hawk and it goes and it blinds someone. And I took all of these things and I boiled them down. This is kind of back to that first thing that I brought up as well, that you and I both do. I took all that narrative and I boiled it down to the 3 categories of things that people were talking about. And I was like, okay, how do we achieve those 3 categories of things? And on this, like, 10-hour flight, just wrote this subclass more or less. As a result of that, it's kind of got a lot of old school design elements that are maybe different from how I tend to design things now. But I think a lot of it also sort of holds up. It does have weird idiosyncrasies that are very specific to my game, which include things like, if your animal companion dies, it dies. It's dead. And I mean, I guess you could resurrect it, but, like, I will kill your beast. I'm gonna do it.
Just quick thing. 2 questions on that, right? Okay, well, actually, I already answered one. So you can try and revivify or raise dead this said creature. Second question. Well, actually, two questions. Actually, sorry. First actual question. Would you then allow the player to take another subclass if their guy's dead? Like, what happens then? Like, what happens?
Well, they can train another one. So
you're gonna make them go through training. Okay, all right. Well.
I mean, it's equivalent to their level, so it's like it's fine mechanically. They'll just be sad and cry about it. Go cry some more. No, for the most part, I'm not gonna kill your animal companion, but there was kind of this element when I was originally designing it that was like, you actually have to go out and find a beast, and at the time I was thinking of it like breaking a horse. Like you have to catch the horse and force them to be to some degree tame, which I think in this version of it I finally wrote that out a little bit. There are legacies of that design throughout the rest of the subclass, but I think I did ultimately change it, but because a lot of people do like that idea of the sort of spiritual, mystical bond. You go out and you just have this like connection with this wolf, and now they're your companion. But for me, it was like, no, you got to pin that wolf down and prove yourself, because otherwise it's not doing it. Which I think says something about me.
I mean, yes. My second question. And I guess this depends on your game, how prevalent necromancy is. If the player like made an argument, or was like, "Can I make?" or somebody made a spell. I don't know if you let players do that, but or NPCs, whatever. Could they bring their pet back as a undead creature, and and you would still have this function in the way it does?
Yes, because that's sick. That sounds great. So yes, it's not something I've thought about before, but that sounds badass. Yes. 100%. If someone as a player in my game asked me to do that, I would be overjoyed. Yeah. So a lot of the core changes to it, a lot of people in that Twitter thread talked about the idea of spending time with your animal companion to train them. And so I wanted it to reflect that, not in terms of having to spend downtime with them necessarily, but as you level, as you progress, your animal companion learns to do more things, and I wanted it to be a little bit like you had spent time training them, and they're kind of maneuvers that you do together. So sidebar real quick, I think that Wizards of the Coast's response early on, I don't know when this was fairly soon after the initial release of the Player's Handbook, when everyone was like, why does the beast companion not get multi-attack? And Wizards of the Coast came back with like the barest of tweaks to the Beastmaster, and then said, you can't give them multi-attack because it'll ruin the game. And I'm like, that's stupid. The monk has multi-attack from like day dot, so you can't give it to the bear, but whatever. I just think that was a weak response from them. My solution is similar but different. Instead of giving them multi-attack, I've basically made it so that you can command your beast with your action to attack, right? So you do the thing. But then after that, once they're fighting someone, they continue fighting them. You don't have to keep saying, yeah, hit him again, Bongo, whatever the name of your bear is. Like why would they stop? Like on a thematic level, like what animal, like what wild animal would stop unless it's like, oh, I need to retreat, because they have retreating instincts, but like they're gonna keep attacking until they need to leave, or they they finish it. Exactly. But yeah, sort of there are all these. I basically did them kind of like Battlemaster maneuvers, but you do them with your animal companion, and there are different sort of training levels, and you can spend points. It's like maneuvers, but if they used sort of key point. I don't know. It's a little confusing. Maybe present Dael would have written it slightly differently, but for the most part it works out. But yeah, you do stuff like, I am picking one at random. Tag team. Your animal companion and yourself have learned to work as a duo, attacking in tandem to give each other openings. While your beast companion is within melee range of a creature, you may spend one maneuver point to use your bonus action and your beast's reaction. That's how a lot of them work, is that you use your action, and instead of taking up your beast's action, you take up their reaction because it's not their turn. You command your beast to draw the target's full attention for a time, conveying advantage on your next attack against that creature this round. It's just the idea of you two are a team and you're working together for this stuff. And a lot of them follow that trend of this is a trick we learned that we practiced together, and look at our bond and how strong it is. And frankly, I think it's better than the Beastmaster.
I mean, I have to agree. It's definitely better than the Beastmaster. I actually like this the same amount that I like the Beast Heart, and that's a full class in a lot of things. Like,
Beast Heart is cool.
Beast Heart is so cool. I played it once. Okay. You know what? We can get on a tangent and we'll be here for another hour. Any last thoughts on the Beastmaster before you tell me more about the Wild Warden? And I have a specific question for you about the Wild Warden, which is more about the fluff.
Hit me with it.
Why is there no fluff? Where is the blurb under the Wild Warden archetype? There's nothing.
It's literally just missing. Once again,
it's missing tail.
Once again, this was so actually a lot of the blurbs that do exist here, with the exception of ones that I did early. So like you mentioned earlier on, the Paladin Oath of Vigilance instead of the Watcher Paladin, which by the way, why am I the one doing the work to standardize the subclass names for Paladins? Oath of the Watcher? That's not a thing. That's, what are you talking? Pick a virtue. Anyway, Oath of Vigilance. Those ones I think I did quite early on, so I was really getting into it and explaining what they were. And if I changed a lot of what a subclass was, so for in that example as well, I, instead of being about outsider beings and whatever, I made it just about watchfulness. And so I wanted to reflect that in the blurb for anyone who was going there and saying, oh yeah, I liked the Oath of the Watcher. I needed them to know straight away that it was something different to what they'd sort of expected. Whereas with ones like the Wild Warden, came later in the chain of things that I did. And so I was getting tired. But also, I was like, this is fresh, this is brand new, no one is gonna confuse it with something else, so I'm just not gonna describe it. They're gonna have to just work it out. If I'd written a blurb, it would have been one line. It's the magic one.
Menace
One day I'll
behavior.
get around to it. One
Sure
day
you
I'll
will.
get around to it.
Okay, but let's talk about the subclass, and I can totally see what you're talking about, how you like change the Eldritch Knight and, you know, kind of crib some stuff together on the Wild Warden, specifically the weapon bond. Like, I'm like, oh, as soon as I saw that name, I was like, I know what that's from. But please talk to me about design, the choices here. Like, give it to me, Dael. Give me the deets.
So for the most part, I was just following along the Eldritch Knight sort of pattern. I was like, great, it's a half-caster subclass, wonderful. So I had sort of copy-pasted over the spell, spells by level information and all that, and then just filled it in with kind of ranger spell stuff. And that's when things got really complicated, right? Because rangers, as actual half-casters, get a very different span of spells to Eldritch Knights or Arcane Tricksters, and they get them at different levels. And Rangers also start getting spells sooner, I believe. Don't they get them at second level? So everything got weird pretty fast. And I had to basically, I've got like spreadsheet after spreadsheet rearranging what spell levels you get access to when, and it had to, I don't think that this progression pattern exists anywhere in the player's handbook. I think I had to make one from scratch just so that certain abilities wouldn't trigger before you had spell levels that were the right size for it. It was a real struggle for a while there, and I hadn't noticed it when I first did it. I think I published this under my video, and someone on Twitter was sort of mentioning things that they liked about it. And then they said, I was confused about this ability because you get the ability before you get the spell. And I went, what? And had to revisit it and change it a bunch. So I'd already like released the video about this document when I was making changes on it. So that was like probably the trickiest thing that I did. And then the rest of it, I was like, okay, so here's the flavor of Ranger that isn't really my jam. This super nature-connected hippie Ranger that's a magic user. But I agreed to make it a subclass when I took it all away from the core Ranger. So I'm gonna lean into it. And so I was trying to think of cool things that you could give a Ranger that has them have a connection to nature. So this idea of them being a protector of the wilds, the Wild Warden. And I'm pretty pleased with what I ended up with. So I ended up with Nature's Fury, which combines with Hunter's Quarry, so that you get kind of like a mini smite. So I was Yeah, I was grabbing stuff from all over the place for this one. I was like, you know what? Why not? You get a little nature smite. There you go. And then on top of that, you get bramble armor, which is kind of like a class ability version of Armor of Agathis, but instead of being ice based, you've got this sort of thorny armor that grows over you. That I did end up making it work quite differently to Armor of Agathis, just because you're not casting it at different spell levels. I had to make it so that it was a decent, it was decently buffed for being an 11th level ability, but it wouldn't be too overpowered. It was, I thought I would be able to do a 1-to-1, let's just put Armor of Agathis in here and reskin it. But that ended up being its whole own little design trickiness. And then Nature's Blessing is kind of ripped off of the Warlock, I think. It's kind of a bit of a, what do they call them? The magical secrets or whatever. Come on, I know what it's called. Mystic Arcanum.
Yes.
It's a bit of a Mystic Arcanum. So I just kind of took little bits and bobs from a lot of different classes or spells and made them be nature themed.
Listen, it works really well. Like, even though I'm like looking at all of them, I'm like, huh. I see where the inspiration comes from it, but you have changed it in such a way that it's like, yeah, this is dope. I like this. I especially like, you know, for the bramble armor that you get 5 temporary hit points at the start of each of your turn. Okay, to be clear, those stack?
They do stack. Someone
Okay.
was asking this question on Twitter as well, and the reason that works out is I basically ran the stats on what average damage is from a CR beast at that level, right? So what damage is a CR 11 creature doing? And I wanted you to be able to get, because I didn't want you to lose your bonus to your health straight away, because the damage that you're getting is really secondary, right? It's not about dealing damage with your bramble armor, it's more about having these temporary hit points that you get from the armor. And so I didn't want it to go away after one hit. So I basically crunched the numbers and was like, all right, once it goes away, it's gone, and I want it to last at least one round. How much does it need to have? The thing that really threw people off for a little while was, wait, but you can just cast this and then keep it, because it gains the 5 hit points at the end of the round, right? So you can just cast it early and get the maximum number of hit points. I think it has a cap of like 25 temporary hit points, and that seems like a ton, but once you're actually in combat, those 25 hit points go real quick. And so I as an 11th level feature, I wanted it to be worthwhile to actually bother doing. And if anyone wants to cast it early, power to him.
Yeah, let him.
That's no new character.
First off, it's an 11th level ability. So what is that? Tier 2 minimum?
Yeah,
let him do it. Also, on the one I'm reading, there's not a 25 hit point cap. Although,
it's not worded as a 25. Let me read the thing. It's in here somewhere, but it's secretly. You know how 5e is written so that it's all like natural language? I did that thing. I have questions for myself. Anyway, as an action, you summon Bramble Armor, so it's an action. Bramble Armor grants you 5 temporary hit points at the beginning of each of your turns if a creature hits you with a melee attack, blah blah blah. When the temporary hit points granted by Bramble Armor is reduced to 0, the Bramble Armor withers and you do not gain its benefits. There's something in there about it only lasting for... I don't know. Maybe it's not in there. Who knows?
which even if it goes past like 25 hit points, it's not that serious.
I'm gonna find that conversation I had on Twitter now, because I'm like, I know it's in there somewhere, but past Dael knows the answers where I don't.
This is hilarious.
I'm gonna find this. I'm gonna prove myself. Vic.
Listen, I think we are beyond you proving yourself at this point in this. Like, to be fair, you've got a lot of great design, but you've also, I think, shown your whole ass at a number of points in this interview.
Which I think is valuable, right? Because I think it's important to know no one's doing perfect design. You know what I mean? We're all just mucking around in the sandpit and seeing what works.
I am doing perfect design, but...
Oh, yeah, apart from Vic. Vic is doing perfect design.
Yes,
that is
specifically around, everything. I was going to just say race stuff, but it's actually everything. So you can't strive to be me, but you can strive to be Dael.
That's true. You can strive to be imperfect, and create 18th level abilities that will instantly drop the big bad evil guy.
I'm gonna make sure that if I put that ability on a weapon that my BBG has or something, or not even my bad guy, probably the lieutenant. I'm gonna make sure my players know that.
That would really mess with the players.
That would really mess
be
with the
so
players.
good.
I'm gonna make sure they know it was you. Be like, hey, I got this ability from Dael Kingsmill. It's all Dale's fault.
I can't find this bloody tweet. I know it's out there.
You know what, Dale?
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it. It won't be today, but I will find it.
Listen, I will hold off posting this episode until you find it, and I will put a little thing at the end. Be like, hey, this is what Dale was looking for. So
this is the explanation. I promise Bramble Armor is an OP.
I mean, I still don't think it's OP even like this, because the odds that it's actually going to get to 25, 35, like, even with the one with the CR11, like, at some point it is definitely going to get broken, right? It's not going to last until you get 100 fucking temporary hit points or something. And then, as you get higher level, it's going to go away way faster than that. Hell, it might not even last an entire round when you're like 13, 14, 15 level, you know? It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Any last words on the Ranger, these two subclasses before?
I think I might be reading an old version of the document. This is me finding excuses. No, I don't have any last words. I stand by everything I've done and said.
Okay. All right. Then, Dale, we're going to close this off with a really important question.
Okay, I'm ready.
Now, as we know, and a lot of the times when people do world building, or a fair number of people, they'll have different analogs in the setting. Oh, this is my Norse setting, my Greek setting, my Roman, my, medieval England. Not enough of them have, like, settings of color and have done the work to put them in there, but, we'll leave that alone for the moment. If somebody came to you and was like, hey, I think that I'm going to take all of the classes, including the Artificer, and I am going to make subclasses that are only specific to the region. So if you take this subclass, it means you are either from there, you have ancestry from the area or something, but this is the way that the barbarian, let's say, totem warrior works. It would probably have a different name, works in this, like, Norse analog. What would your thoughts be to that? And just off the top of your head, or, well, not off the top of your head, since I told you this question earlier, because I wanted you to think about it. I don't want to lie to the listeners, but, like, what's the first?
Such a liar.
I just came clean immediately. First, what's your first thoughts when somebody says that to you? And then second, what analog would you tie it to, and what class, and, like, what thing might it be? Like, I don't need you to give me... I'm not about to ask you to give me all the level abilities from the subclass that you should, but, like, give me your thoughts, and that's, yeah.
Well, here's the thing, because you used the barbarian example when you mentioned it earlier, that is all I've been thinking about, so, like, rip all the other classes, but this is what has been in my head, right? So, because the thing that's cool about that is the Berserker class is so very clearly based on berserkers from Norse Viking culture, right? So the idea was that they become bears, right? They embody this attitude of the bear. They wear the bear skin or the boar skin, or depending on where they're from or whatever, and they become that creature in battle, and they're so frenzied that they can't recognize friend from foe, and so wearing that bear suit actually becomes a marker as well, but you shouldn't go near them because they might kill you even if they're on your side. And that kind of, that feeds into so much of what they did with the barbarian in the player's handbook in general, right? That fits with the totem warrior as well as fitting with the berserker. But I think that there's a lot of cool room there in terms of, like, the stuff I was talking about earlier, even though I did it for the monk. For some reason. I agree with past Dael, but I am confused, but I'm not. I like it, but also what? But having a Pancratian Greek culture themed barbarian who goes into this battle rage, but it's all about grappling and tearing and bloodlust and all this stuff. You could have some really cool differences there. On top of that, you could even if you're talking about, like, if like a totem barbarian, or I called them the wild heart, even if they look if they mechanically look different depending on the analog that you're using, you could have really cool stuff there. So instead of the totem warrior being, choose your animal and we'll have a half-baked idea for what the ability for that thing is, because there's so many choices none of them gets the full attention, right? Instead of that, you could be choose your region, and you get your totem animal based on a polar bear versus based on a boar versus based on I don't know, you could have big cats for different regions. You could have, and having it be based on cultural implications as well, like Egypt, what animals did they venerate in Egypt versus, I think there would be a lot of room for something really, really cool there. And instead of doing kind of half-baked animal abilities in there, you could get really cool, specific, flavorful stuff that matches the cultural analog that you're going for. I think that there'd be a lot of room for that there. I'm fully in barbarian mode. I mean, the clerics, I'm not going to get into it because I haven't thought about it at all, but the clerics are like square one would get so much benefit out of that kind of a concept, right? Because, I mean, I think it was ultimately a good choice swapping to domains rather than deities for the way that clerics are structured in 5e, but I think there's a lot of room left that I think is wasted space, because it could be getting into societal cultural implications that are attached to being a cleric, right? Because the idea of a cleric and this spiritual connection is so tied in with society and culture. It's a little bit weird that we've tried to sanitize it to such a degree. I feel like in an attempt to be secular, they also just kind of got rid of the cultural element.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Well, I'm the host here, so I'm not going to answer that question. But
I found the thing, by the way. I found it. I fully gave you a slightly old version of the document. The Bramble Armor has an additional line in the current version. It says, after 1 minute or when the Bramble Armor is reduced to 0 hit points, it withers and you no longer gain any benefit. So it only lasts for 1 minute, so whatever the maximum there is, not 25, but it's something else.
It's wait, 1 minute, 10 rounds, it's 50. But it's
Great.
1 minute. Whatever. That's fine. Dale, send me that updated copy, please. How dare you send me...
I thought I sent you the right one. I thought I did.
You're making me look like a fool, like I'm incompetent, like I don't know what I'm... You know what? This is rude of you.
I think we both know that I'm making me look like a fool who's incompetent. I think we both know that.
All right, Dale, I super appreciate you having... Wow. I super appreciate having you here.
It's been so nice to have you, Vic. Thank you for giving me this podcast. Everyone, next week we'll be back.
The name is going to change. DK Talks. It's no longer VJ Talks. Yep. Be prepared.
The Dael Kingsmill Hour.
You mean the Dael Kingsmill?
Thank you for having me.
3 hours, right?
Yes.
Not quite 3 hours, but this has been Dale. This has been a pleasure. Like I said, we will of course have you back on, y'all. I had more. Like I mentioned in here when I asked Dale which one would you want to talk about, we still got the monk, the paladin, the sorcerer to talk about. Dale has promised us some changes on things, so we won't get to those 3 that I just mentioned until Dale gets her shit together and gets the other stuff done, so that I can look at it, and we'll come back and talk about it then. Fingers
being
crossed
held
that
so accountable right now.
You really are, because I know my listeners are going to like this from a design standpoint, and just from it's fun to listen to people. So I can't let them down, which means you can't let me down.
Yeah, exactly. And at least it's recorded, so now I can't forget what I promised.
Exactly. And you'll get a copy of this recording, and it's free anyway. So Dale, any last words? Would you like to repitch yourself? Again, links are going to be in the show notes if you would not like to, but please feel free to say a last thing to the people.
Yeah, so hey, I'm Dael Kingsmill, in case you hadn't noticed, on this, my podcast. I make videos about many things, amongst them D&D and design concepts under the philosophy of vague and evocative. I can't believe I haven't said that once in this whole thing. It's literally my brand. I have it on t-shirts. So that's a bit bizarre, but anyway, vague and evocative D&D design is kind of my game, so, you know, come check it out. Or you can find me on Twitter. I'm always hanging out there, sometimes asking how I should redesign the Beastmaster Ranger. You never know. So, you know, you can find me on Twitter at DailyDale, you can find me on YouTube at Monarchs Factory, and you can find me on Twitch also at DailyDale. Look, I didn't consolidate what my branding was across social media websites. I did a bad job of that, so you can just Google my name and a social media platform and it'll come up.
Listen, if you ever do, if you're ever able to change it, I think you should go with Monarchs Factory, because that is such a fun little play on Kingsmill. It's nice.
Thank you. Yeah, my sister came up with it and I couldn't not. Originally my YouTube channel was going to be Daily Dale, but Daily Grace was still a thing at the time. So Monarchs Factory was a last minute suggestion by my sister. So thank you to her.
Yeah, your sister's brilliant. But all right, thank you so much for being here. All right, y'all.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. You will be back. That is a threat and a command. But yeah, thanks for sticking it. Thanks for sticking it around with us, folks. See you next time. Have a great one.
Bye.